This is the story of an individual named Jiang Sangwu, a determined teenager yearning to relish life to its fullest. However, Sangwu is bound to the routines of studying, working, and maintaining a balanced diet. Consequently, he finds it difficult to pursue his own passions, such as gaming, traveling, partying, and dating. He wants a clone who can do all his work while he enjoys life. One day his dream comes true, dividing him into two identical individuals. Sangwoo finds himself among the group of participants eager to explore their hidden skills. Nevertheless, he finds it extremely tedious and yearns to leave and return home. The crowd suddenly hears the voice of Park Won-tae, an A-class hunter, who informs them that he is in charge of the 10th Awakening program. This event offers individuals the opportunity to discover their hidden skills by being exposed to mana after passing through a portal. Hoping for a successful outcome, he announces the start of the program and instructs the first group to step forward. Sangwoo, a member of Group 1, steps forward and joins the line, patiently awaiting his turn. When Sangwoo's turn finally arrives, his identity is verified, and he is given instructions to enter a portal located directly in front of him. As he steps into the portal, he is instantly engulfed by a peculiar energy that overwhelms his senses, almost causing him to lose consciousness. As he gradually regains consciousness, he is greeted by an intense headache, as if his skull is on the verge of shattering. With a disoriented gaze, he surveys his surroundings and discovers that he is now in a bunker, populated by numerous individuals who exhibit signs of shared exhaustion. Suddenly, his attention is captured by a girl, whose recent acquisition of an ignition skill draws the gaze of numerous agents hailing from various guilds. They approach her, each one extending an invitation to join their respective guilds, recognizing the immense value her skill possesses. Witnessing this spectacle leaves Sangwoo feeling a mixture of astonishment and envy, prompting him to ponder what his own skill is going to be. Just then, an agent approaches him and congratulates him on his awakening, while inquiring if he has checked his skill yet. Sangwoo informs the agent that he has not yet checked it and proceeds to consult his personal database. As the status window pops up in front of him, he is astonished to discover that his acquired skill is none other than cloning. He also views his stats, which seem so low, making him realize how weak and pathetic he is. However, temporarily focusing on the skill, he proceeds to examine the complete details of cloning. He finds out that this skill can be utilized without limitations or conditions, which fills him with a sense of amazement. He feels excited as he contemplates the potential use of his clones, even for his daily chores. However, he feels disappointed when he realizes that his skill is still at a very basic level, rendering it insignificant and of little worth. Sangwoo engages in a discussion with the agent, who stands there, waiting for him to finish the verification. He shares his concern about the low stats and seemingly uninteresting skill he has. The agent, understanding his apprehension, assures Sangwoo that his skill holds value and that he should be grateful for having acquired it. He goes on to advise him to approach the officials and showcase his skills, allowing them to assess his abilities. However, Sangwoo feels too nervous to do that, so he expresses his desire to retreat and return through the portal, asking the agent for the way to exit. Upon this, the agent explains that leaving is not an option until he has completed the necessary scanning and registration processes. Reluctantly, Sangwoo complies and makes his way inside to fulfill the requirements. Stepping into the registration area, he undergoes the thorough scanning process and completes the necessary paperwork. With the awakened registration form being sent to his identification bracelet, he makes his way back home. As he travels, he contemplates the possible worth of his skill, wondering about its nature. Once he arrives home, he resumes his beloved hobby of gaming, finding comfort in it. However, after a short while, he begins to grow weary and abandons it, eventually settling onto his bed. At this moment, Sangwoo reflects on the importance of securing a part-time job to afford his tuition fees and rent. However, the mere thought of taking on additional work leaves him feeling utterly exhausted. In the midst of his contemplation, an intriguing idea sparks in his mind: his newly acquired power of cloning. Intrigued by the possibilities, Sangwoo decides to put this newfound ability to the test. Rising from his bed with determination, Sangwoo focuses his thoughts on summoning a clone. To his astonishment, a perfect replica of himself materializes before him. Gazing at the clone, Sangwoo questions whether it is truly a clone, which the clone affirms. He proceeds to inquire if he can make physical contact with the clone, who responds, "Yes, master." Contemplating the possibility of it being a dream, he slaps his own face, only to confirm that it is, in fact, reality. Overwhelmed, Sangwoo extends his hand to touch the clone, verifying that its physical presence is not a mere illusion. Sangwoo hands the clone his clothes to wear and then asks if he only needs to give him an order to make him do something. The clone confirms this, and Sangwoo proceeds to evaluate his obedience and capabilities. He first thinks to make the clone sit, which he quickly does, surprising him for not even needing to speak to give a command. He then tells him to stand, and then repeats the same. Complying, the clone begins to perform a series of sit-ups repeatedly, becoming exhausted soon. This makes Sangwoo realize that the clone has the same stamina as him. While he is engrossed in observing his clone, his attention is abruptly drawn away by the ringing of his phone. He retrieves his phone from his pocket and discovers a text message from his friend Jiangdo. Jiangdo inquires about the skills Sangwoo has acquired, mentioning that he himself has obtained 2 hunter skills. Reluctant to disclose the true nature of his skill, Sangwoo chooses to downplay its significance, suggesting that it isn't particularly noteworthy. This response prompts Jiangdo to chuckle, jesting that Sangwoo, known for his laid-back nature, must have received a skill befitting his lazy persona. As Sangwoo continues texting Jiangdo, he receives a notification about an increase in his stamina. He looks up and realizes that his clone, whom he had given the order to perform sit-ups, has suddenly vanished after reaching his limit. George Lucas, the owner of the Blink skill, is an S-class ranker in America and the leader of the Enlightened group. He is the first person to complete Odin's Tower dungeon, which no one has completed so far. He stands in the Enlightened group's main building, discussing the progress of the awakening process in the country. His secretary tells him that 80% of the population has already completed the awakening process. Upon asking, she adds that it will take almost 5 more years to reach the coveted 100% status, indicating that there is still work to be done. Considering that 5 years is not a long time, he decides to wait for it to be completed. Meanwhile, Sangwoo's clone does hard exercises and intense workouts every day, leading to excessive weight loss and a complete transformation in Sangwoo's physique. The people who see him every day are surprised at his dedication and consistency. However, at the same time, he avoids interacting with people and simply runs away if someone tries to talk to him. This makes them wonder if he is an introvert. Meanwhile, Sangwoo monitors his clone's workout by observing the changes in his own physique. Astonishingly, within a month's time, he manages to lose a remarkable 20 pounds and even grows taller. He wonders how it is possible, even when he rested throughout the day and increased his food intake twofold. Despite his relaxed routine, Sangwoo notices a gradual improvement in his stats each day. This makes him realize that no matter how ungrateful he might be, he has been given the skill that he always wanted to have. During this process, Sangwoo also acquires valuable knowledge about the characteristics and limitations of the clones. One significant revelation is that any pain or exhaustion experienced by the clone does not transfer to the original person. If the clone sustains damage or exceeds its energy threshold, it simply vanishes. Additionally, the clone undergoes the same bodily changes as the original person. Furthermore, Sangwoo discovers that he can easily give instructions to his clone by simply thinking of the desired actions in his own mind. However, the clone itself is unable to utilize the cloning ability. Sangwoo recalls indulging in an exploration of a website called Hunter Wiki, where he came to know about stats. He got valuable information regarding the stats of health, stamina, and endurance, including other special stats that require a hard workout and strong skills to be unlocked. He then goes through his own stats, which appear to be very low, but are increasing at a very quick rate. He knows that it is due to his clone's tiresome workout and consistency that his stats have improved to such a considerable level. He believes that his stat points could have doubled if he had trained like his clone. However, his laziness overpowers him, leading him to think that he cannot withstand such rigorous training. He then goes through a flyer for a gym, and an idea sparks in his mind. He glances at his computer and grins, saying that he will act as a head from now on, while his clone will be his limbs. Motivated by his newfound determination, Sangwoo decides to explore the gym, hoping that it will provide the ideal environment for his training. Yet, amidst his excitement, he suddenly comes to realize that his financial resources have been entirely depleted by his voracious appetite. This has left him with no means to cover the expenses of the gym membership fee, let alone his rent. Sang-woo makes the decision to seek a part-time job at a construction site that would help him earn money and simultaneously improve his physical fitness. With this goal in mind, he begins searching for a part-time opportunity, thinking that he will have to do the job himself the first couple of times. This is because his clone cannot follow his orders to do something that he has not personally experienced. Soon, he finds a delivery or drop-off job at Wukong Logistics Center that seems perfect according to his requirements. Recognizing it as a perfect fit for his needs, he promptly contacts the Wukong Logistics Center for further details about the position. He is informed that he does not need to give an interview for the job and simply has to come to the site and start working. He agrees and tells them that he plans to start the next day. However, the person on the other end wants him to join from the very day, making him wonder if there is no one currently working there. At the promised time, Sang-woo arrives at the center with number 1, his clone. As they enter the premises, he looks at number 1 and wonders how to introduce him, thinking that calling him his twin might create a problem. After thinking a bit, he instructs number 1 to inform everyone that his name is Kim Kyung-do and that they are close friends. He then turns to see where to go and unexpectedly encounters Mr. Dichil, who expresses his surprise at Sang-woo's exceptional weight loss. Sang-woo tells him that he has come with a friend of his to seek a part-time job here. Mr. Dichil, who happens to be an employee at the same company, directs Sang-woo towards the office where he will receive his work assignment. After he leaves, Sang-woo shares his nervousness with number 1, but is surprised to see his clone completely confident. Considering that he is an awakener now, he proceeds towards the designated office space, confident in his ability. He is determined to complete his tasks efficiently, eager to finish his work quickly, and return home to have a delicious dinner. However, when he starts the arduous and seemingly never-ending tasks, Sang-woo experiences an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. In stark contrast, his clone exhibits an unwavering work ethic, seemingly immune to fatigue or weariness. After hours of relentless labor, they get a 1-hour break, during which Mr. Dichil approaches them, bearing food and refreshments. The stamina and resilience demonstrated by the clone left a profound impression on Mr. Dichil. He asks number 1 about his name, and he introduces himself as Kim Kyung-do, as instructed by Sang-woo. Calling his name Manly, he turns to Sang-woo, asking if he is okay. The fatigue and exhaustion that Sang-woo feels makes Mr. Dichil think that it is his first time working, which Sang-woo agrees with. However, he still appreciates their grit, stating that most people have run away by this time. Deep down, Sang-woo also wants to run away, but his current financial condition does not allow him to do so. Intrigued by Sang-woo's academic background, Mr. Dichil inquires about the university he attends. When Sang-woo mentions his alma mater, Gyeongguk University, Mr. Dichil's admiration grows. He reveals his desire for his daughter to follow a similar educational path. However, he worries that her academic prowess might not be sufficient to secure admission. Sang-woo reassures Mr. Dichil that his daughter can indeed gain admission into the esteemed institution. He shares his own experience of being an underachiever who managed to gain admission, stating that she can also do it. Overwhelmed by Sang-woo's encouraging words, Mr. Dichil extends a proposition. He offers Sang-woo the opportunity to leave this tiresome job and instead become his daughter's tutor. He offers him a 50,000 won salary for teaching his daughter for just a few hours per week, making Sang-woo interested in the job. After careful contemplation, he accepts the offer, and Mr. Dichil tells him that he will discuss the matter with his daughter and let him know. After Mr. Dichil leaves, Sang-woo checks his stats and is delighted to see a significant improvement in them. Determined to finish his job for the day after having dinner, he turns around to find that his clone has already consumed everything. The next morning, Sang-woo wakes up to find his body aching from the tiresome work he had done the previous night. Vowing never to exert himself like that again, he decides to make number 1 do all the work. As he observes the stat window, he notices that his strength and stamina have increased. This makes him realize that his clone has been exercising and working out on his behalf. Calling his clone back from the morning exercise, Sang-woo proceeds to have his breakfast. As he finishes his breakfast, number 1 comes back from the exercise, and Sangwoo tells him to wash up and change his clothes. After he does so, Sangwoo takes his hand, and despite feeling nervous and scared, he pricks his finger with a pin, allowing it to heal naturally. His purpose in doing this is to activate his regeneration ability, a technique he learned from the Hunter Wiki. He ponders how much time will be required to activate this ability. However, out of sympathy for the clone, he chooses not to inflict larger wounds. Following that, Sangwoo instructs the clone to eat and provides him with a spare phone for making calls before leaving for the gym himself. On his way to the gym, Sangwoo comes across Kim Gyeongdo, who is taken aback by the change in his physique. Sangwoo informs him that he has been working out lately and is actually on his way to the gym at this very moment. Realizing that he should also incorporate exercise into his routine, Gyeongdo inquires about the gym Sangwoo is heading to. Upon hearing Sangwoo's response, he expresses his approval, noting that it must be a great gym since he has heard about an exceptionally attractive trainer there. Considering that, Gyeongdo decides to accompany Sangwoo to the gym, and they walk together, eventually arriving at the Tub Body Gym. There, they are greeted by a gym trainer who is busy having lunch. He tells them about the limited sale on membership registration for 3 months. Motivated by his determination to enhance his physical prowess, Sangwoo promptly registers himself for a 3-month membership. He asks the trainer to take a look at his posture on each of the machines, recommending exercises. He plans to send his clone to the gym, and therefore does not worry about the arduous nature of the exercises. As he begins to lift weights to let the trainer see his postures, he finds it very hard and tiresome. While the trainer is telling him about his posture, their attention is shifted to Gyeongdo, who displays immense strength and stamina by lifting the heaviest weights. Gyeongdo's posture and energy impress the gym trainer and all the other people present there. His body and strength make the trainer think that he has been working out for a long time. However, his claim to have never visited a gym before intensifies their astonishment. They begin to realize that his awakened hunter skills have led to such an increase in his stats, thereby making him powerful. Sangwoo thinks that if an ordinary hunter's skill can make Gyeongdo so strong, how strong will the high-profile hunters be? Just then, his phone rings, interrupting his contemplation. It is Mr. Devchil, inviting him for a face-to-face meeting at his residence to discuss the tuition offer that had been extended the previous night. Sangwoo promptly complies with the request and heads towards Mr. Devchil's apartment. While on his way, he thinks about Gyeongdo and not registering for the gym just because the rumor of a pretty trainer there was wrong. However, he feels good about that, considering that he can now send his clone to the gym without any worries. As he reaches the apartment, he hears a noise coming from inside. Rather than ringing the doorbell, Sangwoo engages in eavesdropping, inadvertently becoming engrossed in the conversation between Mr. Deokchil and his daughter regarding the tuition matter. Suddenly, Mr. Deokchil opens the door, catching him off guard. As a result, Sangwoo loses his balance, tumbling to the ground in a state of profound embarrassment. Mr. Deokchil invites Sangwoo inside, offering an apology for not having noticed his arrival earlier. Inside the house, he is warmly greeted by Mr. Deokchil's wife, who compliments Sangwoo on his noticeable weight loss. Meanwhile, Haeyeon, his daughter, sits nearby, feeling nervous. Sangwoo initiates the conversation, revealing his intentions to become Haeyeon's tutor from that day on. However, Haeyeon feels a tinge of embarrassment as she reflects on her recent shouting that Sangwoo may have heard. Before starting the tutoring session, he requests to review Haeyeon's academic performance by examining her grades. This request amplifies her feelings of embarrassment, yet she finds herself with no choice but to comply. Reluctantly, she shows her report card, which bears disappointing grades that only serve to compound her parents' sense of embarrassment. Sangwoo acknowledges the daunting nature of Haeyeon's academic struggle, yet he offers her a glimmer of hope and reassurance, sharing his personal experience of having had horrible grades during his high school years. He assures Haeyeon that improvement is within her grasp as long as she approaches it with perseverance and dedication. With these encouraging words, he sets out on his task of tutoring her. After an intensive tutoring session, Sangwoo concludes his responsibilities for the day and returns to his own home. He thinks it is fortunate that Haeyeon is brighter than he expected and hopes she will perform well. Thinking that number one must have gone to work, Sangwoo sits down in front of his computer and begins to search the hunter's web. He intends to buy a suitable skill related to him in order to become stronger. Although he does find suitable skills related to him, the price of these skills is too high and out of his budget. This realization leads him to wonder just how wealthy the hunters must be in order to afford multiple skills of this caliber. As he ponders that, he realizes that he is wasting such a precious skill on menial jobs and wants to do something better. Determined to become a hunter to utilize his skills in a better way, Sangwoo decides to take the hunter's license exam. He begins to prepare for the test by watching videos that explain what a hunter is, their purpose, history, and duty. The following day, he makes his way to the Hunter's Center, a massive building bustling with numerous individuals. Upon entering, he observes a multitude of people engaging in activities related to weaponry, including weapon repairs and purchases. However, there appear to be very few people present specifically for the Hunter's exam. At that moment, he catches the receptionist announcing the imminent closure of Hunter's exam registration. Swiftly, he registers for the examination and proceeds to the basement exam hall, discovering a room filled with candidates eagerly awaiting the commencement of the test. Feeling nervous, he goes and takes his seat in the hall. Just as the test is about to begin, the invigilator, a C-class hunter, arrives to give them all the guidelines about the test. He tells them about the 3 levels of the test, including the written, practical, and aptitude tests. He also warns them against cheating, saying that those who are caught cheating will be disqualified from the test. With this, he announces that the test will start. Meanwhile, on the highway, Kang Junmo, the CEO of the JMM agency, is driving while conversing with his boss regarding a financial issue. He appears stressed as the funds are not flowing into their agency, despite their requirements for expenditure and investment. He looks at his watch and realizes that it is time for the Hunter exam to end, prompting him to rush to the center. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Center, Sangwoo successfully completes the written test and is congratulated on passing it. He is surprised at the fact that the test was easier than he expected, much like a driver's license test. After the written test, Sangwoo proceeds to diligently practice for the forthcoming practical examination, for which an ample amount of time is allotted. As he progresses through the qualifying stages, Sangwoo finds himself appearing for the aptitude test, which resembles a moral examination commonly found in schools. To his satisfaction, he passes that as well. The process of becoming a hunter unfolds with a level of simplicity that exceeds his initial expectations. He wonders whether it is due to the government's eagerness to mobilize its citizens for monster hunting. However, deciding not to overthink about it, he makes his way to the exit. As Sangwoo steps outside the building, he notices individuals distributing cards and engaging in conversations with the successful hunters. He assumes these individuals are guild members who have arrived to recruit hunters. Just then, Kang Junmo approaches him and presents him with his visiting card, offering their services and assistance during his hunting endeavors. For a nominal fee, Sangwoo is assured that he can obtain the aid he desires by contacting their agency. While engaged in this discussion, an unexpected notification appears in Sangwoo's status window, heralding the upgrade of his cloning skill. The upgrade grants him the ability to summon not 1, but 2 clones simultaneously. Overwhelmed by this exciting development, Sangwoo halts the conversation and swiftly departs, making his way back to his house. After reaching home, Sangwoo utilizes his augmented cloning ability, summoning an additional clone. Fueled by enthusiasm, he resolves to transform all of his clones into skilled hunters. After distributing most of his cards, Junmo finds himself deep in contemplation as he returns to his car. Memories flood his mind, particularly of the time he spent with the Hazon Guild. He remembers how the officials there were involved in money laundering and urged him to follow them. However, due to his unwavering loyalty and refusal to partake in their nefarious activities, he was expelled from the guild. Considering his current efforts to earn money, he thinks that he should have kept his mouth shut. Suddenly, his introspection is interrupted by an incoming call from Sangwoo, who expresses a desire to meet in person. Intrigued, Junmo agrees to meet him at a coffee shop and goes there to find Sangwoo awaiting him. After ordering a drink, Sangwoo dives straight into the purpose of their meeting. Sangwoo wants Junmo to recommend a safe training ground that is suitable for newcomers to train with ease. Junmo asks about Sangwoo's skill, to which Sangwoo responds, mentioning his ability in cloning. Thinking it to be illusionary cloning, Junmo considers this skill to be useless. However, He does not reveal his true impression of the skill and praises it instead. Junmo then extends a contract to Sangwoo, asking him to read it. While he is busy doing that, Junmo suggests the slime hunting ground is the safest among the hunting grounds. He explains that slimes are not very dangerous, but as they die, they release liquids and poisonous gases that can be dangerous. However, the drawback of hunting there is the limited time one can hunt due to the protective clothing that cannot be worn for long. Sangwoo, who is reading the contracts and taking pictures of them, says that it won't be a problem for him. Junmo also proposes the horn rabbit hunting ground as the second option. While recognizing its safety as a hunting location, he mentions the inherent challenge of capturing these elusive creatures, which consequently leads to lower earnings. However, the presence of the safety barrier there makes it a safe place to hunt. After giving both of these options to Sangwoo, Junmo waits for his response. After going through the entire contract, Sangwoo expresses his interest in both of these hunting grounds. He decides to sign the contract, but when Junmo asks him to choose one of the two places, just then, the real Sangwoo appears, signs the papers, and tells him that he wants to hunt in both of these places. Junmo is taken aback as he realizes that the person sitting in front of him is not a human but a clone. Junmo is stunned by the unexpected sight, and a memory surfaces in his mind. He remembers his meeting with another hunter possessing cloning ability, albeit limited to creating mere illusions. Comparing those clones to the one sitting in front of him, Junmo notices stark differences. The ability of this clone to verify the contract and even drink coffee makes him realize that he has never seen such skill before. Perplexed, he inquires of Sangwoo whether the individual seated before him is a twin, causing Sangwoo to laugh. Sangwoo reassures Junmo that the person is not his twin, but rather his clone. Nevertheless, unlike others, this clone is physically tangible, resembling an actual human being. He also tells Junmo about a second clone, whom he has dispatched to the fitness center. This revelation astonishes Junmo further, as he contemplates the idea that Sangwoo's clones can potentially aid him in improving his stats. This impresses Junmo, prompting him to ponder whether Sangwoo, an F-class hunter, possesses a far greater potential than initially perceived. Bringing the discussion back to the hunting grounds, Sangwoo asks if it is possible for the same person to enter two different hunting grounds simultaneously. Junmo says that since there is a record of one's entry, it can be difficult. However, he assures Sangwoo that he will talk to the Hunters Association and make adjustments, because the process will require Sangwoo's bracelet scanning and skill demonstration. Junmo asks Sangwoo to accompany him. However, Sangwoo reveals that he cannot use his skill until tomorrow night because of the cooldown on it. Considering that, he proposes that Sangwoo visit the Hunter Center 2 days later and complete the process to get permission for duplicate access. They then proceed to finalize their agreement before departing. 2 days later, Sangwoo arrives at the Hunter Center, where he meets Junmo. Junmo takes him inside, telling him that most of the hunter-related activities take place within the Hunters Association. Once inside, Junmo directs Sangwoo to the counter, where he requests the agent's authorization, allowing him simultaneous access to 2 hunting grounds. Sangwoo tells the agent that his skill is cloning, but because he has only one identity bracelet, he cannot get duplicate access to 2 hunting grounds simultaneously. The agent asks him to wait for a while since he is the first one to request duplicate access after Jumper. He searches for the application form in a huge pile of folders, finally retrieving it and handing it over to Sangwoo. Instructing Sangwoo to proceed to the Civil Service Office and Equipment Room, the agent gives him guidelines for processing the documents before heading to the skill demonstration room. Assuring Sangwoo that he will handle all the required paperwork, Junmo urges him to proceed directly to the skill demonstration room. Complying, Sangwoo makes his way to the designated room, where he successfully summons one of his clones, satisfying the criteria for duplicate access. Soon, he receives the duplicate identity bracelet from a third person. The person tells him that the bracelet will not only allow duplicate access, but also enable his clones to revisit locations he has already entered. Additionally, the person expresses admiration for Sangwoo's exceptional skill, describing it as unparalleled not only in Korea, but in the entire world. Sangwoo expresses gratitude for the compliment and promptly departs with his clone. After leaving the skill demonstration room, Sangwoo reaches the hall and meets Junmo, who congratulates him on the completion of the process. Grateful for Jummo's assistance, Sangwoo learns that all the preparations for his entry into the hunting grounds have been completed. Jummo asks if he wants to enter the hunting grounds right away, to which he agrees. Sangwoo expresses his desire to commence his venture without delay. As they engage in conversation within the hall, Guildmaster Shin Haesung of the Haesung Guild catches sight of them and immediately recognizes Jummo. Recognizing Jummo, Shin calls his name and swiftly leaps down a few floors, making his way towards them. Although Jummo does not appear pleased to see Shin, he greets him, causing Shin to laugh. Shin's attention then turns to Sangwoo, and he asks about his identity. Jummo explains that Sangwoo is a hunter affiliated with their organization. Based on his appearance and attire, Shin deduces that he is an F-rank hunter. After learning this, he begins to humiliate and ridicule Jummo for assuming the role of a guide for a mere F-class hunter. He reminds Jummo of the time in Haesung Guild when he used to supervise C and B-rank hunters. Jummo's anger is fueled by this demeaning behavior, pushing him to the edge. Nevertheless, Sangwoo intervenes and delivers a fitting reply. In a praising tone, he acknowledges Shin as the master of the top-ranking guild in the country, making him feel proud. However, he goes on to call Shin a top ranker for monopolizing dungeons, restricting hunting grounds, and payment ratio, making him infuriated. Surprised by Sangwoo's audacity, Shin challenges him to demonstrate his skill in order to determine if it is as strong as his guts. This makes Sangwoo feel extremely nervous, and he contemplates what to do. Just then, Shin's assistant arrives, summoning him for an important business matter. He departs, hoping to encounter them again, while Sangwoo and Jummo also take their leave. As they make their way towards the designated hunting ground, Jummo thanks Sangwoo for what he did. Sangwoo says that he could not just stand by and watch. Upon asking, Sangwoo shares with Jummo the information he has come across about him on the web. Jummo confirms the details, revealing that he was previously a member of the Haesung Guild but was ultimately expelled. Following his departure, he joined the Jammin agency, yet the members of his former guild continued to threaten those considering joining his agency. This resulted in a discouragingly low number of hunters opting to affiliate with them. Curiosity getting the better of him, Jummo asks Sangwoo why he has chosen to join their agency. In response, Sangwoo explains that the financial benefits offered by his agency are exceptionally impressive, ultimately swaying his decision. Sangwoo then sends a text message to his clone, who happens to be engrossed in an arduous workout at the gym, instructing him to depart at 4 o'clock. The people observing him do such a painful exercise feel relieved when he finally stops his workout session and leaves. With their plans set, they finally reach the slime hunting ground, which Sangwoo finds particularly challenging for his training purposes. He finds it very difficult to breathe while wearing the gas mask, rendering him unable to fill the container. Jummo tells him that no matter how patient a person is, it is not possible to hunt for more than 6 hours here. However, if one has high-quality equipment, it is possible for one to endure much longer than that. Thinking that he cannot even bear it for 2 hours, let alone 6 hours, he decides to send number 2 to hunt. So he gives all his equipment to number 2, and he leaves to enter the hunting ground. After he is gone, Sangwoo asks Jummo to take him and number 1 to the horned rabbit hunting ground. However, just then he realizes that he forgot to pick up number 1 from the gym. Meanwhile, number 1 stands in front of the gym, waiting for Sangwoo to come. Soon after, Sangwoo arrives accompanied by Jummo and picks up number 1 from the gym, making their way towards the Yujangsan field. On their way, Jummo asks about Sangwoo's logic behind naming his clones. Sangwoo explains that since they all look the same, he has given them names to distinguish between them. Sangwoo asks Jummo about the equipment he will need for hunting, and Jummo tells that he will rent it from the hunting ground. However, he asserts the necessity to have one's own equipment because the weapons rented can only be used on one specific hunting ground. Meanwhile, they reach the Yujangsan field, an enormous and heavily guarded place. Seeing this place, Sangwoo thinks it is much different from the slime hunting ground. Jummo informs him that this is the location of the monster break. Sangwoo knows that a monster break occurs when a monster leaves the portal and enters the human world, destroying everything in its wake. This leads to the place being converted into a field, similar to the Yujangsan field. Jummo tells him about a similar incident that occurred here 5 years ago, leading high-class monsters to invade the place. However, all of the high-class monsters were killed by hunters, leaving only E and F-class monsters behind. This has since made the Ujangson Field a popular training ground for new hunters. As they go inside, Jumbo guides him towards the place where he can rent equipment. After obtaining all the necessary ammunition for hunting at a huge price, they venture towards the designated hunting spot. Jumbo assures Sangwoo that he can get his money back after hunting rabbits, since one horned rabbit amounts to more than a bucket of slime. After reaching the designated spot, Sangwoo sees many hunters seated there, engrossed in their hunting. Jumbo points towards Sangwoo's designated seat and tells him to sit there and begin hunting. Sangwoo, confident in his shooting abilities, takes his seat and starts hunting, believing it to be a simple task. However, to his disappointment, even after 3 hours of continuous tries, he fails to catch a single rabbit. As night falls, Jumbo departs, leaving Sangwoo alone to contemplate whether to stay or leave. Ultimately, Sangwoo delegates the hunting task to his clone number 1, instructing him to send a text message with the number 1 after each successful kill. He then heads back home, hoping that number 1 will be able to catch at least one rabbit and allow him to earn some money. At home, he goes through his stats and rapidly increasing mana points, feeling satisfied that at least number 2 is slaying the slime successfully. However, thinking about Shin's challenge, he realizes that he still has a long way to go. Engrossed in these thoughts, he goes to sleep, wishing number 1 to catch at least a single rabbit. Throughout the night, messages keep arriving from number 1, updating him on his successful hunting. The next morning, Jumbo receives a call from the manager of the slime hunting ground. The manager informs him that Sangwoo's clone, number 2, has been hunting non-stop for a continuous 24-hour period and is not in his right mind. The manager implores Jumbo to come to the hunting ground immediately and put a stop to his further hunting activities. Hearing this, Jumbo assures them that he will be there as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Sangwoo wakes up to find his phone flooded with messages from number 1. He is astounded to discover that his clone has managed to hunt an astonishing number of rabbits. Simultaneously, Jumbo reaches the slime hunting ground and is astounded to see all their available containers filled with slime by number 2. He cannot believe that the clone has filled all of those within a single day. Jumbo calls Sangwoo and excitedly relays the news of number 2's exceptional slime hunting prowess to him. He asks him to stop the clone from further hunting while he calls the corpse cleaners. In response, Sangwoo, who has reached the horned rabbit hunting ground, shares the unexpected revelation of number 1's remarkable rabbit hunting abilities, leaving Jumbo equally astonished. He tells Jumbo to send a team of corpse collectors there as well, stating that the corpses of horned rabbits hunted by number 1 have blocked the way. Meanwhile, a crowd gathers at Ujangson Field around number 1 and the pile of rabbit corpses he has accumulated. The observers are in awe of his extraordinary hunting skills. Guild masters and recruiters swarm around him, offering him invitations to join their respective guilds. However, being a mere clone, number 1 remains silent and does not respond to their propositions. At that moment, Sangwoo approaches number 1, concealing his identity under a hood. He hands his clone an additional box of bullets, telling him to continue hunting until Jumbo comes with the corpse collector's team. Submitting to the order, number 1 arms himself and commences his hunt, captivating the onlookers who have gathered to witness his extraordinary abilities in action. After leaving the Ujangson Field, Sangwoo makes his way to Heian's house for their tutoring session. While checking her test, his thoughts drift towards the underestimated capabilities of his clones. He thinks that if his clones can give such an excellent output with just 50% of the stats he has, what could be their actual potential? While he is engrossed in these thoughts, he is interrupted by Heian, who seems to be observing him. Out of curiosity, she asks what he was thinking about so deeply. He hands the check test to her, appreciating her for the improvement she has shown this time. She asks him once again about his thoughts, and he reveals that he was contemplating his hunting experience. Surprised by the revelation that Sangwoo is a hunter, she proceeds to share recent news regarding a hunter with him. She tells him about an individual who has astonished everyone by setting new hunting records through the successful elimination of hundreds of horned rabbits. Curiously, this person remains unidentified but goes by the name Ujangson Eagle Eye. Sangwoo is astonished to see number 1 prominently featured on the top news section of Hunter Wiki. However, he feigns ignorance about this news when in front of Heian. Heian expresses her long-standing desire to become a hunter with Sangwoo. She tells Sangwoo that she is awakened and has even gotten a license, but she feels nervous to enter the hunting grounds. After thinking about something, she requests Sangwoo take her to the hunting grounds just once if she scores good marks on her test. In response, Sangwoo proposes a deal, promising to fulfill her wish if she achieves good marks and secures admission to Gyeongguk University. Sangwoo then leaves the room and discusses Heian's progress with her mother, assuring her that she is very talented and will surely achieve good marks. Heian, who stands behind the door, listening to their conversation, feels encouraged by Sangwoo's words. Sangwoo takes his leave, declining her offer for dinner, saying that he has to go somewhere urgently. After he leaves, Heian feels overjoyed at getting the opportunity to talk to a hunter. She remembers disliking Sangwoo initially just because his father knew him, but after interacting with him, she began to realize that he is not a bad person. Encouraged by Sangwoo's words, she wholeheartedly commits herself to studying harder. Upon leaving Heian's house, Sangwoo returns to the Ujangsan field, where a large team of corpse collectors is busy gathering the bodies of horned rabbits. He meets Junmo, who stands there monitoring the corpse collection process. Upon inquiring, Sangwoo tells him that he went to his tutoring job. Junmo tells him that this is the first time in his career that he is called for such a large team of corpse collectors, comprising 352 members. He asks Sangwoo to check the reward money sent by him into his account. The sum far exceeds Sangwoo's expectations, leaving him in a state of exhilaration and joy. Junmo tells him that due to the exceptional hunting skills of the clone, he has adjusted the settlement to 83%, which is used for E-class hunters. Just then, they are interrupted by an individual who claims that number one has snatched away all his prey, resulting in a complete failure of his hunting experience. He demands to be paid for it, which makes Junmo feel that they chose the wrong spot for hunting. Just then, an idea sparks in Sangwoo's mind, and he murmurs something to Junmo. Seeing them whispering to each other, the person repeats his demand, asking for 10% of the group's earnings. Sangwoo starts to laugh upon hearing this, which infuriates him. Assuring him that number one will not be coming to this place for some time now, Sangwoo and Junmo start to leave. The person becomes enraged upon seeing them leave, while he is not done talking and rushes to attack. At that moment, Sangwoo instructs number one to take the attack on himself, and he does so. Consequently, number one is badly hit in the face, leaving him bleeding. Sangwoo, who is standing nearby, records the encounter and describes it as an act of violence in such a place. This draws the attention of the corpse collectors team to the individual, causing him to feel tense. Utilizing the footage as leverage, Sangwoo threatens to expose the person's actions on Hunter Wiki, an act that would irreversibly damage his reputation. Overwhelmed by this revelation, the individual begrudgingly retreats, accepting defeat. After the encounter, Sangwoo, Junmo, and number one head to a coffee shop. There, Junmo reveals that the person they encountered at Ujangsan Field was a member of the Haesung Guild. He tells them that the person kept an eye on him from the moment he entered the hunting ground. Junmo shares his insight, explaining that the guild harbors ill intentions towards their agency and mistreats their hunters. Their continuous distractions and bothersome attitude often lead their hunters to leave the agency eventually. He is of the view that this action was taken because they thought the clone to be another hunter who has joined their agency. He further adds that he cannot promise that there won't be any distractions in the future. Hearing this, Sangwoo assures him that he has still joined this agency despite knowing it all. Determined not to succumb to their bullying tactics, Sangwoo assures Junmo that he will not be easily swayed. He declares his resolve to grow stronger at a rapid pace, refusing to allow the members of the Haesung Guild to continue their harassment. To achieve this, he explains a plan he has formulated in his mind to Junmo, who appears impressed by it. After hearing the plan, they decide to meet at the Hunter's Market the next day at 2 p.m. The next day, Sangwoo and Junmo meet at the Hunter's Market to make some purchases. There, they learn about the newly opened departmental store that dominates the industry because it has all the equipment hunters could ever ask for. Sangwoo also enters that departmental store and purchases armor suits made of titanium, along with weapons and ammunition. He orders 2 more sets of similar armor and leaves the shop. He also plans to purchase the familiar skill he had previously searched for but was unable to afford at that time. Consequently, he goes to a store where he finds the skill ball he has been looking for. The container's description states that this skill can be utilized to share senses with one's summons or pets. Considering that it is still out of his budget, he requests that Jumbo lend him some money in advance, which he does. Thinking that the successful completion of his goal will lead them to earn this money back in no time, he buys the ball. He then returns home and reads through the instructions in the accompanying manual to activate the skill ball and put it to use. The manual tells him to pour mana into the ball or simply switch on the button while keeping it in contact with the body. Sangwoo goes with the second method, considering that he cannot control mana, and switches on the button. This causes strong rays to emerge from the ball that surrounds Sangwoo. A few moments later, he receives a notification of the activation of the familiar skill that allows him to share his vision and senses with his clones. After shifting the skill into his body, the skill ball disappears. Following this, Sangwoo summons both of his clones, who are now equipped with the armor suits he had purchased for them. We then see flashbacks from the coffee shop, where Sangwoo is engaged in a conversation with Jumbo regarding his plan. He informs Jumbo that despite his clones possessing only half of his abilities, they exhibit remarkable mastery over their physical movements. Sangwoo intends to use it to his advantage and asks Jumbo about 2 training grounds, each specialized in enhancing long-range and short-range weapon skills, respectively. As per his strategy, both of his clones set off to different training academies with the intention of enrolling. However, rather than commencing with the fundamentals, they astonish the coaches by immediately requesting instruction in sparring and shooting techniques. The sparring coach explains to the clone that he will have to attack the opponent's stick and make him drop it in order to win. On the other hand, the shooting coach asks the other clone again if he really wants to use the pistol instead of a short gun. Resolute in their determination, both of them agree and start right away. To the surprise of the coaches, both the clones display exceptional skill and expertise in their respective trials. While number 1 defeats his opponent in sparring within an instant, number 2 shatters the clay target with a single shot. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, following his plan, activates his familiar skill to connect to his clones. He can experience everything, even the movements of the joints and muscles, while sparring and the breathing, aiming, and direction while shooting. After experiencing all this, he opens his eyes, confident in his ability to copy all these movements. After deactivating the familiar skill, Sangwoo feels as if he was the one taking part in shooting and sparring. The movement of the muscles, the smell of the gunpowder, and the recoiling force felt so real as if he himself were involved in it. He even feels fatigued as if he were the one doing all this, despite knowing that he has not moved a single inch from his place. Considering that his clones have exactly the same bodies as him, he feels confident that he can copy those movements with ease. Just then, a status window pops up in front of him, informing him that his strength has increased. He decides to practice both sparring and shooting himself. Utilizing his familiar skill, he establishes a connection with number 1, who is engaged in a fight with the coach after successfully defeating a highly skilled trainee. Meanwhile, all the trainees watch the competition with curiosity, considering that the coach has decided to spar with a student personally. During their battle, the coach realizes that although number 1 lacks experience using Batmans, his defense is outstanding. He is impressed by number 1's ability to read his moves and dodge his attacks. Not only that, but he also copies the coach's attacks right away and uses them against him, leaving everyone shocked. In this way, he defeats the coach and asks to start the match again. After observing number 1 for quite a while, Sangwoo decides to connect to number 2, who is occupied with shooting practice. He is surprised to see number 2 even shooting the targets of the person standing beside him. However, since they seem happy, he decides to focus only on the shooting. He keenly studies the shooting techniques employed by number 2, meticulously absorbing every detail of his clone's skills. Taking in the entirety of their techniques, Sangwoo deactivates his familiar skill, feeling the exhaustion of depleting his mana. Seeking respite, he finds a bench in a park to rest on and sits down. While resting, he thinks about the crazy movements of his clones, who do not hesitate or fear while training. He decides to go with the clones next time in order to test what happens if he tries it himself. Just then, Sangwoo encounters Heian, who is returning from the library and engages in a conversation with her. Their interaction catches the attention of individuals sitting at a distance. In the flashbacks, we see the individual who assaulted number 1 at Ujangson Field reaching out to his guild members and informing them that his attack was filmed. Upon hearing this, they advise him against approaching Ujangson Field and warn him never to disclose his affiliation with the High Sun Guild if he gets caught. Saying this, they end the call, leaving the person feeling enraged. He throws his phone away and starts cursing his guild members. Just then, the criminals who seem to be his friends arrive and inquire about the reason behind his distress, prompting him to share the entire incident. He also asks if they have any suitable job opportunities for him, given his instructions to stay away from Ujangson Field. In response, one of them confirms that he does have some part-time jobs available. At that moment, their attention is drawn to Sangwoo and Haeyeon, who are deeply engaged in a conversation nearby. Upon recognizing Sangwoo, the individual informs his friends that he is the same person who recorded his encounter with the hunter. While Sangwoo converses with Haeyeon, they approach him, leaving them feeling perplexed. Suddenly, Sangwoo recognizes the individual and urgently calls number 1 and number 2, instructing them to swiftly arrive at the location. Simultaneously, their boss steps forward and demands the removal of the video recording capturing the assault, promising a peaceful departure in return. Aware that deleting the video does not guarantee his safety, Sangwoo hesitates to comply. Sensing an imminent confrontation, he advises Haeyeon to seize the moment and escape, while he himself confidently stands before them. Observing his unwavering resolve, the criminal dispatches his subordinates to assail and assault him. Due to his lack of training and exhaustion from mana depletion, Sangwoo endures a severe beating at the hands of the thugs. Just as he falls to the ground, losing hope of victory, Haeyeon intervenes, unleashing her latent fire and fog powers, which frighten the subordinates. However, their leader remains undeterred by her display of power and steps forward to attack. At that moment, Haeyeon employs her powers to launch a strike at the person, causing fog to spread throughout the area. Surprisingly, he emerges from the fog unscathed and advances. Just as he is about to strike her with his fist, Sangwoo once again intervenes and blocks the attack. Utilizing his powerful striking skill, Sangwoo delivers a precise punch to him, causing him to lose his balance and stagger, leaving Haeyeon stunned. Seeing their master fall, the other members of the gang hastily launch their assault on Sangwoo. However, armed with his newly acquired sparring strategies, he adeptly defends himself and swiftly counterattacks with calculated precision. The gang leader, who appears to have noticed Sangwoo's skills, rises once again. He expresses his initial hesitation to beat him, believing that Sangwoo was incapable of fighting. With a determined intention to engage in combat, he charges forward, causing Sangwoo to feel concerned about what action to take. Given the lingering pain from his previous fight, Sangwoo realizes he is not physically prepared to endure such forceful strikes once more. He starts to comprehend that the person's immense power stems from muscle enhancement techniques, leading Sangwoo to conclude that he must avoid being struck by him. As the person advances, ready to land a blow, Sangwoo springs into action, skillfully evading the attack and retaliating with powerful punches, further fueling his anger. After enduring 2 to 3 blows, the gang leader unleashes his true power, resulting in his muscles bursting forth. He forcefully punches Sangwoo, aiming to disrupt his equilibrium, which he cannot dodge because the second criminal holds his leg. The impact of the blow is so strong that it throws him off balance, making it difficult for him to breathe. However, just as he prepares to strike a fatal blow, Haeyeon intervenes, employing her ignition skill to deliver a powerful strike, effectively thwarting the attack. Seeing this, the remaining thugs hastily turn their attention towards her, readying themselves to launch their assault. However, before they can carry out their intentions, number 1 and number 2 arrive on the scene, unleashing their combined strength to subdue them. Meanwhile, Sangwoo also regains stability and is finally able to breathe. He thanks the person for giving him a chance to put his skills to the test in a practical scenario. He then uses his striking skills again to deliver one last powerful blow that knocks the person down. Subsequently, a notification appears in the status window, informing him of an increase in his muscle strength, speed, stamina, and endurance. It also notifies him of the upgrade in his skill that grants him the ability to summon 3 clones simultaneously. Sangwoo is elated by this newfound development. Subsequently, he escorts Haeun for medical treatment and accompanies her to her residence. On their way, Haeun expresses her astonishment upon learning that the renowned Ujangsan Eagle Eye was actually a clone of Sangwoo. Sangwoo sternly instructs her not to disclose this information to anyone, and she obediently complies. He expresses his deep appreciation for her assistance, acknowledging that he would not have been able to succeed without her support. Haeun agrees to this and requests a gesture of gratitude in the form of a treat, which Sangwoo promises to give her. He bids her farewell on the doorstep of her house and turns to leave. Noticing his clones following him, he turns to them and instructs them to go and continue their rigorous training. They inform him that they cannot train during the night as all the academies have been closed. Taking that into consideration, he picks up sticks from the ground and gives them to his clones, telling them to practice in the park while he heads home. Time swiftly passes, and an entire month elapses with the clones steadfastly devoted to their training. On a call with Junmo, Sangwoo shares the progress in his training and his skill upgrades with him. Junmo is glad to hear that and congratulates Sangwoo for being able to enhance his stats at a faster pace due to the 3 clones. Sensing the need for further training, Sangwoo requests Junmo urgently arrange 3 hunting grounds for his clones to utilize for their training purposes. Junmo readily agrees, taking on the responsibility of scheduling the locations. After hanging up the call, Sangwoo instructs the clones to go to the park and do the exercises that he has specified for them. While the clones engage in exercises and warm-up routines, Sangwoo focuses his attention on conducting comprehensive research. He delves into an exploration of various F-class monster classifications, studying their distinctive characteristics, behavioral patterns, and methods of attack. Having thoroughly reviewed the guides pertaining to F-class monsters, he aims to ascertain whether his clones can effectively execute the hunting strategies outlined within the manuals. As the clones return from their exercise routine, Sangwoo instructs them to take a shower and eat. He plans to send them to the training grounds and connect with them through familiar skill while practicing the mana breathing technique at home. He knows that he really needs to master that technique since the depletion of mana makes it difficult for him to use familiar skill for a longer duration. Just then, he receives a message from Junmo, informing him of his arrival in 10 minutes. He instructs the clones to finish their meal quickly and get ready. Shortly thereafter, Junmo arrives to transport them to the designated training grounds. Sangwoo tells him that he will remain behind and participate remotely through his familiar technique while practicing mana breathing exercises. Junmo agrees and takes them away, while Sangwoo goes inside and starts the exercise to gain proficiency in the mana breathing skill. He sits on the floor, focusing on his senses while ignoring the disturbances in his surroundings. Focusing all his attention on circulating the mana inside his body, he starts getting control over the core of his inner energy. Finally, a window pops up in front of him, notifying him that he has successfully obtained the meditation skill. In an F-class hunting ground, a hunter runs to save his life from a formidable monster that seems to be of a much higher rank. The hunter seems terrified and wants to escape the dungeon to report the authorities about the monster, but is located and brutally killed by it. Meanwhile, Junmo, after dropping off number 1 and number 2, takes number 3 to the sewage treatment plant, the hunting ground famous for the alien fish. He instructs number 3 to be careful as he leaves. Seeing him leave, Junmo thinks of the amazing ability that Sangwoo possesses, allowing him to rest at his home while hunting in 3 grounds simultaneously. He expects the hunter industry to notice if the experience proves successful. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, who seems overjoyed to have acquired the mana breathing technique, is notified that he has only acquired the meditation skill, which is an entirely different thing. This leaves him disappointed, causing him to believe that the mana breathing is indeed hard to master. Just then, he receives a message from Junmo informing him that all his clones have reached their assigned training locations. Eager to monitor their progress, Sangwoo activates his familiar skill, establishing a connection with number 1. To his astonishment, he witnesses number 1 effortlessly dispatching hordes of giant rats that relentlessly assail him. He wonders if the guild has helped him during the hunt and looks forward to finding it out. However, to his surprise, number 1 hunts solo, following the guidelines given in the manual to use shooting and close-range hunting skills. He then connects to number 2, who fearlessly moves through the hunting ground, killing every monster that comes his way. Similarly, number 3 also engages in actively eliminating the alien fish, leading to an increase in their collective stat points. Meanwhile, other hunters who enter the hunting ground notice an unusual silence, which arouses their suspicion. Before long, they stumble upon a stack of lifeless alien fish, prompting them to wonder about the potential value of their findings. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, who is happily accompanying his clones, suddenly realizes that he has forgotten to instruct his clones to collect the corpses of the vanquished monsters. Considering that they were the primary source of money, he orders all of them to quickly go back and gather the corpses of the monsters they have hunted so far. While number 1 and number 2 execute this task successfully, number 3 encounters a significant problem. During the collection of the slain alien fish, number 3 stumbles upon fish torn apart in a brutal manner. Sangwoo notices that he is not collecting those corpses and asks him the reason behind that. Number 3 informs him that he hasn't hunted those creatures, prompting Sangwoo to instruct him to gather them all anyway, emphasizing their monetary value. In compliance, number 3 starts collecting the remains of the monsters, causing Sangwoo to ponder why someone would sever them in such a manner. During the process, number 3 stumbles upon a human hand, shocking both of them. He continues to trace the trail of the alien fish remains, unknowingly walking into a trap. As he progresses, he gradually realizes that the dead fish were nothing more than bait. Suddenly, a colossal monster with the face of a fish and the limbs of a monster materializes before him. Number 3 attempts to confront it with a gun, but the creature launches a sudden attack, causing number 3 to lose his arm. The excruciating pain resulting from the injury affects Sangwoo profoundly, prompting him to scream, which in turn causes his connection with number 3 to get severed. Reacting to the situation, Sangwoo quickly contacts Junmo, inquiring about the location of number 3's hunting ground. Sangwoo asks him to bring number 1 and number 2 to the same training ground while he himself hastens to the scene as well. Meanwhile, despite sustaining severe injuries, number 3 confronts the monster, fighting with all his might. Soon, they all reach the sewage treatment plant, and Sangwoo informs Junmo about his harrowing experience. Upon learning about the monster, Junmo is shocked and emphasizes the need to alert the authorities and secure the area. He reveals that the creature encountered by number 3 is known as Fishman, classified as a D-rank monster. As he is about to leave to alert the authorities, Sangwoo stops him and asks him to allow his clones to enter the portal before closing it. Junmo feels bewildered, but Sangwoo asks him to trust him as much as he trusts his clones. Accepting his request, Junmo allows his clones to enter the place, while Sangwoo employs the familiar technique to establish a connection with them. Together, they embark on a search for the precise location where number 3 vanished. Soon enough, the clones come face to face with the formidable monster who is busy consuming the alien fish. Considering that it is a golden opportunity to attack the monster, he instructs the clones to aim for its head. Complying, the clones ignite their weapons, launching bullet attacks at the monster, only to realize that the bullets do not affect it. Noticing the presence of the clones, the monster swiftly charges towards them, intending to crush them. Dodging the attack, they resort to wielding swords, attacking the monster from both sides. However, their efforts prove fruitless, for the monster's impenetrable skin remains unscathed by the feeble scratches inflicted by their blades. Unyielding, the monster retaliates by brandishing its own short sword, launching a vicious assault that they barely manage to defend against. It then hits them with such force that they are knocked down to the ground, clueless about how to handle the situation. Suddenly, Sangwoo notices that one of the bullets fired by the clones inflicted some damage on the monster. So he urges the clones to relentlessly aim for the wound with their guns, hoping to exploit this vulnerability. Fortunately, their concerted efforts begin to weaken the monster. Nevertheless, as the creature's blood begins to flow, an unexpected phenomenon occurs. The blood reacts with the sword the monster wields, causing a strange sort of energy to emanate from the sword. This helps the monster rejuvenate itself, growing even stronger than before. Empowered by this newfound energy, the monster swiftly injures both clones with little effort. However, thinking that this surge of energy is just temporary, they charge at it once again. Despite sustaining severe injuries, the clones refuse to yield. They keep launching attacks on the monster with their swords, spears, and every weapon they have. Finally, they manage to overpower the creature, delivering relentless blows until it finally succumbs. Wounded and fatigued from the grueling fight, the clones too collapse onto the ground, seeking a momentary respite. However, their relief is short-lived, and they suddenly notice the wounded monster stir, gradually moving away from their position towards the portal. Meanwhile, the guards at the entrance forbid the hunters to enter, informing them of the presence of a D-rank monster inside. Suddenly, they notice the fishman approaching the portal with a short sword in its hand. Reacting swiftly, the guards unleash a barrage of gunfire upon the monster, but their bullets prove ineffective. Undeterred by the hail of bullets, the monster charges forward, ready to unleash a retaliatory attack. Just as it lunges towards the guards, the clones arrive on the scene, launching a fierce counterattack against the monster. However, before the clones can fully engage the creature, Sang-woo emerges before them, confronting the monster head-on with a relentless assault. With unwavering determination, Sang-woo exerts all his strength to deliver a decisive blow to the head of the monster, ultimately sealing its fate. The onlookers stand in awe, transfixed as they witness Sang-woo thrusting his sword deep into the creature's skull, ensuring its ultimate demise. As the people stand surrounding the monster's corpse, shocked to comprehend what they saw, a top-class hunter dispatched by the Hunters Association arrives at the scene. He is equally astonished to see the corpse of a D-class fishman. Inquiring about the incident, he consults the guard who informs him that the creature was slain by a hunter who ventured into the portal. Hearing this, the hunter assumes that the killer is a member of a D-rank hunter's team. However, his astonishment grows as he discovers that the responsible individual is not a team, nor a D-rank hunter, but an F-rank hunter possessing the cloning ability. The guard then points towards Sang-woo standing with Junmo at a distance, telling the hunter that he is the one who killed the monster. Curiosity piqued, the hunter approaches the monster's lifeless body, closely examining the techniques employed to slay it. He notices the same wound of the monster being targeted repeatedly, in an attempt to weaken it without the need for special weapons. This makes him wonder if it's possible to accurately shoot a moving monster in the same spot, further intensifying his astonishment. However, before engaging Sang-woo in conversation, he decides to investigate the training ground, ensuring the absence of any other lurking D-class monsters. Meanwhile, Sang-woo receives a lot of new skills, including sprinting, smite, shooting, and regeneration, along with a significant increase in his stats. He takes a look at his clone's condition, who appear to be badly injured. However, he decides to let them heal by themselves, as doing so would enhance his regeneration ability. Junmo, who is standing beside him, asks about his experience of killing the deadly monster, which Sang-woo considers to be highly dangerous. Junmo believes that the level of skill Sang-woo possesses could even enable him to single-handedly slay an E-class monster. Engrossed in conversation, his attention is drawn to the short sword wielded by the creature. Intrigued by its uniqueness, he decides to claim it for himself. However, Junmo warns against the potential curse associated with the item, suggesting that Sang-woo delegate the task to his clone instead. Conceding to Junmo's advice, Sang-woo retreats, expecting to be given a big reward for slaying a D-class monster. He decides to leave before the media descends upon the scene and starts the coverage. However, just as he is about to leave, he suddenly recollects something of importance and takes out a large ruby-colored stone from his pocket. Inquisitive, he turns to Junmo, questioning its value and mentioning that he has extracted it from the monster's head. Junmo, awestruck upon seeing the stone, makes a decision not to disclose its true worth. Instead, he nonchalantly dismisses it as a mediocre gem of little significance. He says that this stone is used to increase stats, but due to some dangerous side effects associated with it, it is not good for humans. This makes Sang-woo a little disappointed, but Junmo assures him that the remains of the monster are enough to earn him a great profit. Satisfied by his words, Sang-woo leaves, delegating the corpse collection task to Junmo. After reaching home, he tells his clones to rest and resummons number 3 who vanished after being attacked by the monster. Sang-woo gives the armor back to him, telling him to wear it and exercise. Meanwhile, he takes out the short sword and the jewel he took from the monster. He searches the web about the jewel and learns that it is a low-class strength jewel capable of transforming the consumer into a monster if excessively consumed. He contemplates whether to allow his clones to consume it, but fears the possibility of himself becoming a monster and being killed by his companions. Considering this, he dismisses the idea of consuming the gem and sets it aside. Next, he retrieves the short sword, which is enclosed in a box. Recalling Junlo's advice to have the clone hold it due to its potential curse, he calls Number 2 and instructs him to hold the sword. Apparently, Number 2 holding the sword does not exhibit any immediate effects, but Number 2 claims to hear voices. Utilizing his familiar skill, Sang-woo connects his senses with those of the clone in order to investigate further. As soon as the connection is established, he begins hearing loud voices of monsters screaming and growling, which greatly unsettles him. Consequently, he severs the connection, pondering the potential impact if he were to hold the sword directly. Taking this into consideration, he decides to retain the sword and use it sparingly before ultimately giving it away. He also notices an increase in his regeneration stat, realizing that resting is aiding the clone's faster regeneration. He then instructs all of them to practice mana breathing and meditation while he is absent. The next day marks the end of his vacation, and he returns to school. As he walks through the corridors, he is surprised to see that no one comes to greet him. This makes him realize that he is a loner whom nobody even recognizes. When he enters the class, he finds his friend, Yeongdo, sitting there, and they are both surprised to discover that they are in the same class. Yeongdo informs him that he chose this subject because the professor who teaches it is generous with marks. While they are engrossed in conversation, their juniors notice Sang-woo and are shocked by the change in his physique. Observing everyone talking about his transformation, he realizes why they didn't greet him. He asks Gyeongdo if he has changed that much, to which Gyeongdo responds that even his own parents wouldn't recognize him if they saw him. Gyeongdo then shares his struggle to recognize Sang-woo when he spotted him on the street. However, putting that topic aside, Gyeongdo mentions his plan to have a drink with their other friends after class. Sang-woo declines, mentioning that he has promised to meet someone else, causing his friends to believe that he has made new friends, triggering a strong reaction from them. In the headquarters of the World Hunter Association, Chairman Michael Harris receives alarming news from the Oracle about an impending disaster. The revelation predicts the opening of a portal, leading to the invasion of hundreds of monsters, even from the A rank. The person then reveals the location of the portal to be somewhere in South Korea. In South Korea, the Kindness Guild Master, Park Won-tae, enters the Korean Hunter Association, clueless about the ongoing events. While inquiring about the purpose behind the gathering, he unexpectedly comes across the Yalo Guild Master, Han Mio, who accidentally collides with him in excitement to meet him. She also expresses her curiosity regarding the significance of the situation. Engaging in conversation, they proceed together into the conference hall, where the remaining guild masters are already seated, patiently awaiting the meeting to start. Upon Won-tae's entrance, Shin Haesung, the master of the Haesung Guild, begins annoying him with his mocking behavior. Won-tae, in turn, simply ignores him and turns around, displaying no interest in talking to him. Shin, persistently annoying, continues discussing Won-tae's team's failed expedition to Ogun's Tower, as they did not return. At that moment, the Taeyang Guild Master intervenes, urging Shin to cease his remarks. Demonstrating his conniving demeanor, Shin emphasizes the inadequacy of the team's results, pushing Won-tae to his limit. However, before Won-tae can react, Oh Byong-un, the leader of the Hunter Association, arrives. Observing his presence, Won-tae quietly takes his seat, leaving Byong-un curious if something is wrong. Byong-un steps forward and takes his own seat, warmly greeting all the guild members before commencing the meeting. During the meeting, he relays the grave warning received from the World Hunter Association regarding the monster invasion. He urges all guild leaders to cooperate in order to confront the imminent danger of an invasion by A-class monsters. The guild leaders demand precise details of the invasion, including the time and place, which even the authorities are uncertain about. Considering the need for more accurate information regarding the event, the guild leaders hesitate to fully commit to the cooperative effort. In that critical moment, Won-tae rises from his seat and proposes a solution. He suggests that each guild leader should maintain vigilant patrols within their respective regions, promptly notifying others if any peculiarities or signs of danger are detected. By sharing this vital information, all the guilds can swiftly converge on the specific region requiring assistance. Recognizing the reasonableness of this suggestion, all the guild leaders reach a consensus, agreeing to implement the strategy. Therefore, the meeting ends with a decision for all the guilds to defend their own regions while maintaining a close cooperative relationship. Meanwhile, After finishing his classes, Sangwoo leaves the school and encounters Haeyeon, who is struggling to fend off a boy requesting her phone number. As soon as she spots Sangwoo, she hurriedly approaches him, gripping his hand, and pretends to be a close friend. While they walk, she confesses that she fabricated a story to get rid of the boy who wanted her number, taking advantage of Sangwoo's timely arrival. She asks him to fulfill his promise and buy her some meat. Upon this, Sangwoo inquires why she is not taking her classes for the day. She explains that they have no classes for the day due to her school's anniversary. There, he generously treats her to the finest and most expensive Korean beef available. Haeyeon, while enjoying their meal, feels reluctant, thinking that the meat is very expensive. However, Sangwoo tells her not to worry about the price and keeps ordering more, surprising her. Suddenly, a breaking news announcement starts broadcasting a disaster alert and warning of the impending monster invasion. Urging all citizens to evacuate the cities and gather essential supplies, the broadcast advises seeking refuge in shelters. Sangwoo's friends, who still feel deceived because Sangwoo refused to have a drink with them, wander the streets, pondering why Sangwoo behaved that way. They suspect he went to meet a girl, but they are reluctant to believe it. However, as they pass by the restaurant, they spot Sangwoo sitting inside with Haeyeon, which fills them with rage. At that moment, their phones suddenly start buzzing with emergency alerts, leading them to realize that something was wrong. They find it perplexing that their surroundings remain calm despite the presence of a disaster warning. Just as they contemplate this, Sangwoo and Haeyeon emerge from the restaurant and appear perplexed upon seeing them. They claim to have coincidentally stumbled upon him while passing by. They inquire about Haeyeon, asking if she is a friend of his. Sangwoo explains that she is a student of his whom he treated to a meal because she helped him. He then introduces his friends to Haeyeon and gives her the packed meal, telling her to go straight home and enjoy it with her parents. He also urges his friends to head back to their homes in light of the ongoing disaster alert. However, he is taken aback when he observes that everyone around him is behaving as though nothing has happened. He wonders if he is the only one who is overly sensitive about the situation. Just as he begins to process this peculiar behavior, he receives a call from Junmo, who gives him additional details about the impending threat. Junmo explains that the city will be in a state of emergency for a minimum of 3 months. He cautions Sangwoo about the heightened danger posed by the impending attack of numerous and highly dangerous monsters. Sangwoo inquires why the association is concealing the information from the public if the threat is of such magnitude. Junmo explains that due to the significant duration of 3 months, restricting citizens from working could result in substantial economic losses, for which the association would be blamed. Junmo informs Sangwoo that he is heading to the shelters because all hunting grounds have been closed. Consequently, Sangwoo also decides to return to his home. Upon reaching his apartment, he proceeds to inspect his clones. While number 2 appears to be in good condition, number 1 is in a severely deteriorated state, prompting him to make the decision to resummon him. After resummoning number 1, Sangwoo gives him a cap to wear in order to make him look different from the other clones. Just then, number 3 comes back from the exercise as well, and he takes them all to his home. When he comes home after 3 months, all his family members are shocked, struggling to recognize that it is really him. The stark difference in his appearance, having lost a significant amount of weight, renders them unable to believe that he is Sangwoo. This makes him realize that Jae-yongdo was right when he said that even his parents would not be able to recognize him. Seeing the clones, his mother thinks that they are his friends and inquires why they are wearing masks. Upon this, Sangwoo reveals that they are not his friends and tells them to remove their masks, further intensifying their astonishment. He explains the entire story of his awakening and getting this casting skill, enabling him to summon clones. He also tells them about his hunting job, which makes them worried about his well-being. However, he assures them that his skill has made it easy for him to hunt. He then tells them about the impending disaster, stressing the importance of leaving the house immediately to seek shelter. However, his father, who seems inconsiderate of the impending danger, reassures him that everything is under control and tells him to calm down and wait. Sangwoo's frustration grows as he witnesses the collective nonchalance displayed by his parents and community. He yearns for the government to make a public announcement regarding the threat, hoping that it will catalyze a more serious response. He decides to stay with them in order to protect them if he cannot convince them to leave. Temporarily setting the topic aside, He asks for dinner and presents them with the Korean beef he brought from the restaurant. Soon, they all sit together and enjoy the dinner, relishing this moment of togetherness. They all feel glad to have reunited as a family. As they engross themselves in their meal, an abrupt tremor jolts their surroundings, reminiscent of an earthquake. In an instant, chaos ensues as the building begins to crumble, subjecting Sang-woo to severe injuries. Disoriented, he gradually regains consciousness, only to witness a sight of unimaginable magnitude. A huge portal materializes, unleashing a horde of deadly monsters that descend upon the world, wreaking havoc and destruction in their wake. Among them are the monsters as big as the towering buildings, spewing fire like dragons and leaving a path of destruction in their wake. Sang-woo turns his gaze back, only to find his parents and sister lying unconscious on the floor. However, to his relief, he notices that they are spared significant harm thanks to his clones, who valiantly shield them from grave injuries. Nevertheless, he realizes that number one has disappeared while saving his family members, leaving his armor behind. Considering that one of his clones disappeared while the other is severely injured, Sang-woo contemplates what to do. He never expected the portal to open this early. At this moment, his family begins to stir from their unconscious state, and he urges them to leave the house without delay. His father seems sad about their house being destroyed, but Sang-woo states that the house is not important at the moment. Meanwhile, a relentless attack of monsters descends from the sky, some crashing down in a disastrous free fall, while others unleash terror upon the city through mass killings. Sang-woo and his family quickly pack up all the necessary things to leave. In order to ensure his sister's safety, he tells her to wear number one's protective armor suit, shielding her from potential harm. Suddenly, a monster falls from the sky, straight into their house, making them realize that the portal opened up in the sky, killing the monsters that could not fly. As they prepare to exit the house, they encounter a problem. The lock appears to be damaged, preventing the door from opening. Just then, Sang-woo steps forward and activates his striking skill to hit the lock with a baseball bat, then kicks it so hard that it breaks, leaving his family stunned. As they venture into the streets, fleeing their home, a disheartening sight meets their eyes. All the vehicles lie in ruins, rendering them incapable of swift travel. With the nearest shelter situated nearly 2 kilometers away, traversing the distance on foot proves impossible amidst the relentless downpour of monsters from above. Sang-woo's sister Ji-woo suggests utilizing the underground tunnels beneath their house, revealing a secure path leading to the shelter. Grasping this lifeline, Sang-woo instructs his family to hasten towards the basement. However, just as they near the basement, they see a person trapped beneath the weight of a colossal D-class troll, desperately crying for help. Sang-woo's father, cognizant of the imminent danger and prioritizing their own survival, urges Sang-woo to press forward without offering assistance. Nevertheless, Sang-woo's unwavering conscience and inherent responsibility as a hunter forbid him from abandoning fellow humans to their demise while pursuing his own safety. Firm in his resolve, he tells his family members to seek refuge in the basement, securing the door with number 3 safeguarding them. Stating that, being a hunter, he cannot let innocent people die, Sang-woo embarks on a mission to save the trapped individual, accompanied by number 2. Once there, Sang-woo attacks the troll, taking it away from the trapped person. He then directs number 2 to escort the imperiled person to safety while he confronts the troll, prepared to engage in a fierce battle. After successfully rescuing the individual in danger, number 2 returns to assist Sang-woo. Sang-woo tells him to take out the short sword and gives Fishman's jewel to him, urging him to consume it. He believes that it is not the time for them to be picky about weapons, and they should do everything they can. To their astonishment, upon ingestion of the gem, number 2 undergoes a remarkable physical transformation, resulting in an immense surge of energy and stamina. His monster-like appearance confuses both Sang-woo and the troll regarding whose side he is actually on. Number 2, however, assures Sang-woo that he is still on his side. Sang-woo is relieved to find that the physical transformation of his clone had no side effects on him except for the increase in his energy. With their newfound strength, the duo prepares to face the menacing troll. As the fight begins, the troll charges towards Sang-woo, its intentions set on attacking him. However, before the troll can attack, number 2 swiftly wields Fishman's short sword and, with a single forceful strike, severs the troll's arm. This leaves Sang-woo in awe of the sword's incredible power. In agony, the troll charges towards Sang-woo with its huge weapon once again. However, Sang-woo notices it to be much slower than the fishman, making it a comparatively easy target. Deciding to exploit this weakness, Sang-woo rushes to attack the troll, but is shocked to see its severed arm being regenerated at a rapid speed. Using this newly regenerated arm, it hits Sang-woo so hard that he gets knocked to the ground. Despite its soft skin, its fast regeneration ability makes it challenging for Sang-woo to inflict substantial damage on it. Faced with this obstacle, Sang-woo instructs number 2 to incapacitate the troll and create an opportunity to bring it down momentarily. In compliance with the order, number 2 injures the troll's leg using the sword, while Sang-woo aims his gun at the weakened creature. By firing a bullet into its eye, Sang-woo causes it to lose its eyesight, leading it to stagger. Just as the troll begins to lose its balance, Sang-woo activates his striking ability and forcefully strikes its eye with a baseball bat. This devastating blow results in the troll's immediate demise and an increase in Sang-woo's stats. However, the impact of the hit causes intense pain in Sang-woo's hand, although he remains satisfied and relieved to have vanquished the monstrous foe. He considers the troll to be equally strong as the fishman, despite not having a cursed weapon like the fishman that gave it power. He then quickly gets up to return, thinking that his sister might be worried about him. However, just then, he begins to realize that he has lost his phone during the fight. He asks number 2 to lend him his phone and laughs at his monster-like appearance. He is of the view that number 2 will get kicked out of the shelter if he goes there with that appearance. Just then, he hears voices from behind and turns to see a new wave of people come running towards them, seeking assistance from the approaching horde of monsters. Simultaneously, teams of hunters from various guilds arrive on the scene. However, rather than prioritizing the safety of the people, their main objective is to eliminate the leader of the monsters. They believe that accomplishing this feat will lead to significant financial gain and fame. Their primary concern is not the well-being of the general public, but rather becoming prominent among the guilds. Among them is Park Won-tae, who arrives at the location accompanied by his guild. He instructs the guild members to jump from the plane and start the rescue mission. Park Won-tae, accompanied by his guild members, also arrives at the scene. He tells his guild members to jump down and start the rescue mission. His guild members inform him that the head of the monsters is moving away from their location. However, Won-tae has a different approach, prioritizing the safe evacuation of the surviving civilians over gaining fame by slaying the deadly monster. With determination, he sets out to search for people in need of evacuation. While scouring the area, he witnesses hunters collecting jewels from monsters and taking the precious belongings of the deceased civilians, which disappoints him. At that moment, one of his guild members informs him about several survivors spotted nearby, prompting him to check their situation. Using his skill, he zooms out to their location and spots Sang-woo, his clone, and a small group engaged in a fierce battle against a swarm of monsters. Impressed by Sang-woo's remarkable combat skills, Won-tae wonders if he too is a skilled hunter. Considering the overwhelming number of attacking monsters, Won-tae decides to lend a hand and joins the fray by descending from the plane. Meanwhile, Sang-woo finds himself growing increasingly fatigued from the relentless onslaught of monsters. He realizes that his plan to return to the basement right after slaying the troll was destroyed by this surprise onslaught. He tells the other people to reach the basement of the building, but they can't due to the presence of monsters at the back. Therefore, he instructs number 2 to cover the back while he fights on the front. The never-ending surge of monsters causes him to lose a great deal of energy and become exhausted. However, driven by an unwavering resolve, he refuses to give up and continues to fight valiantly. After the relentless battle with ogres, they are suddenly attacked by gigantic ostrich-like monsters. The monstrous birds spew fire, directing it towards the group of people, which number 2 blocks by becoming their shield. This causes number 2 to reach his limit and vanish, leaving Sang-woo to confront the horde of monsters alone. At that very moment, a colossal tiger emerges, instilling fear even in the hearts of the other monsters and causing them to scatter. Believing his defeat to be certain, Sang-woo sits down and closes his eyes, awaiting the deadly attack from the monster. However, much to his astonishment, the attack never comes. Opening his eyes cautiously, he discovers Won-tae standing before the menacing creature, whose throat is severed. Soon, The monster falls down and dies instantly, leaving them all shocked. Maintaining his calm composure, Wante turns and inquires if everyone is all right. Intrigued, Sangwoo inquires who he is, upon which he introduces himself and his guilt. Meanwhile, in the basement, the people sit, frightened by the dangerous situation, while Sangwoo's sister, Jiwoo, insists on venturing out to find him, which number 3 does not allow. She pleads with him to allow her passage, asserting that his master's safety should be his top priority. However, number 3 holds the belief that he cannot disobey his master by endangering his family. Jiwoo's parents also implore her to desist, expressing concern that her actions are frightening others. Although they too share deep worry for Sangwoo's well-being, her father urges her to remain there and trust in his abilities. He reassures her that if the clone, being Sangwoo's skill, is unharmed, then Sangwoo himself must be safe, and venturing outside would only further complicate matters. Upon hearing this, Jiwoo agrees and steps away from the door, opting to stay in the basement and await Sangwoo's safe return. Suddenly, their anxious silence is shattered by desperate cries for help coming from outside. Jiwoo becomes elated, thinking it might be Sangwoo, but her father informs her that the voice sounds different. Realizing the person is unfamiliar with the password, they conclude that he belongs to another apartment, prompting them to contemplate whether or not to open the door. Ultimately, their compassion prevails as they consider the possibility that the individual outside might be in dire need of assistance. Jiwoo rises and unlatches the door, considering the possibility that her brother may be accompanying the person. However, as soon as she opens the door, she discovers that the person they saw on the camera was actually a corpse, ensnared by a fearsome monster. Just then, the creature throws the corpse away and advances forward, revealing itself to be Scream Firefly, a dangerous B-class monster. Witnessing the terrifying monster, a sense of panic overtakes the people, prompting them to scatter aimlessly in fear. Amidst the chaos, Jiwoo remains frozen in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the unfolding events. Determined to save her, number 3 courageously charges towards the monstrous creature, ready to eliminate the threat. However, before he can act, the monster swiftly retaliates, impaling him with its spear-like appendages and inflicting fatal wounds on both number 3 and Jiwoo. Jiwoo, as a result, falls to the ground and loses consciousness. Number 3, realizing his inability to save the people from the monster, retrieves his gun and proceeds to damage the emergency buzzer. The system detects this damage, triggering the activation of the emergency lockdown of the basement door. Employing his full strength, number 3 then pushes the monster outside, effectively barricading it and preventing it from advancing further. Meanwhile, in the street, Wante introduces himself to Sangwoo, who quickly recognizes him as the organizer of the Awakening program. Sangwoo also introduces himself and expresses gratitude to Wante for saving his life. Wante commends Sangwoo for his unwavering spirit and determination to confront the danger head-on, emphasizing that he had the option to flee but chose not to. The individuals rescued by Sangwoo also express profound gratitude and admiration for his conscience, humbling him further. At that moment, Wante recalls witnessing number 2 disappear before his eyes while saving people from the monster's attack. Curiosity piqued, he inquires if Sangwoo is a hunter. Sangwoo confirms this, prompting Wante to ask about his skills. However, just as Sangwoo is about to tell them, an unsettling realization strikes him, a severed connection with number 3, indicating imminent danger for his own family. Driven by urgency, he equips himself with a short sword and rushes towards the basement. Acknowledging the dangers of Sangwoo going alone, Wante contacts his guild members, instructing them to track his location and reach there while he follows Sangwoo. Sangwoo runs to the basement holding the sword in his hand, which slowly begins to show its side effects on him. However, undeterred by that, he continues to rush towards the basement, activating his sprint skill. Simultaneously, the remaining guilds persistently attempt to eliminate the monsters. However, their efforts prove futile as the creatures display extraordinary strength, rendering conventional weapons ineffective. Recognizing the futility of competing among themselves for fame, they contemplate the necessity of collaboration. They begin to acknowledge that united endeavors offer the best chance of surmounting this dire situation. While they are discussing this, Shin Haesung arrives and dismisses the notion of cooperation. They are surprised to see him there and ask why he came. Renowned for his cruelty and greed, Shin states that he heard about the prospect of earning a lot of money from here. He believes that absolute power does not come from cooperation, but from a skill that he possesses. Meanwhile, in the basement, Ju lies on the floor, badly injured, while his parents sit by her side, crying for assistance. They try to give her first aid while imploring her to bear the pain for a little longer and stay awake. Suddenly, one of the basement walls breaks, and the firefly scream gets in, followed by Sangwoo, who is now in a berserk state. Yet, as Sangwoo advances forward, a heartbreaking sight awaits him, his sister lying on the ground, fatally wounded. Overwhelmed by a surge of anger and remorse, he channels his emotions into a fierce assault on the monster. However, the monster flies away after injuring him with its spear-like appendages. As Sangwoo's blood begins to flow, it reacts to the fishman's short sword he is wielding, resulting in a tremendous increase in his power. Simultaneously, the monster returns and launches a ferocious assault on him with its spear-like appendages. With his sword in hand, Sangwoo runs towards the monster. However, before their fight can commence, Wontae and his guild members intervene. Wontae engages in combat with the monstrous creature, while his comrade promptly takes Sangwoo away to heal his wounds using her mana transfer skill. She informs Wontae about Sangwoo's critical condition and emphasizes the urgent need to eliminate the monster. However, Sangwoo, worried about his sister's well-being, pleads with her to prioritize his sister's treatment and save her life. This catches Wontae's attention, and he appears moved by Sangwoo's concern for his sister. He assures Sangwoo that both he and his sister will be saved and proceeds to kill the Scream Firefly. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, Oh Byung-hun receives crucial updates on the ongoing invasion and the urgent requirement for immediate evacuation. He recalls his meeting with Shin Hae-sung after the gathering with other guild members to discuss the portal opening concluded. During the meeting, Shin warned him about the potential consequences of informing the public about the invasion in advance. According to him, this could result in the association being held responsible for all the economic losses. Shin suggested concealing the information, causing people to blame themselves for not evacuating the cities. He believed that more casualties would increase the association's significance and make people realize the importance of their role in the country. Reflecting on his decision to heed Shin Hae-sung's advice, Oh Byung-hun finds himself contemplating whether his actions have been right. Meanwhile, Sangwoo stays at home, enjoying his ideal life, while his clones do all the tiresome work for him. He considers himself lucky to have such a great skill. Just then, Jummo calls him to inform him that he has arrived. Accompanied by Number One, he goes to the parking lot and finds Jummo waiting for him. He tells Jummo to take Number One to the Horned Rabbit hunting grounds. Jummo inquires about Number Two, and Sangwoo tells him that he is exercising. Jummo suggests that he should exercise with them to gain more benefits, but Sangwoo believes it is better for the clones to do it. While they are talking, Jummo suddenly turns into a corpse, shocking Sangwoo. He then turns around to see his sister, and even his parents transformed into lifeless corpses, ominously converging upon him. With an accusatory gaze, they blame him for abandoning them after becoming a hunter, which led to their subsequent demise. Overwhelmed by this haunting vision, Sangwoo lets out a chilling scream, abruptly jolting awake and realizing that it was just a harrowing nightmare. As he regains consciousness, he finds himself in a hospital room, with Wontae standing nearby. As Sangwoo catches sight of Wontae, a realization dawns upon him. It is Wontae who brought him to this place, saving his life once again. Wontae tells him that his wound was deep, but he was lucky to survive. Filled with gratitude, Sangwoo expresses his heartfelt thanks to Wontae for his act of rescue. Wontae, displaying his characteristic humility, brushes off the praise and mentions that he has a favor to ask of Sangwoo, but will patiently wait for a more opportune moment. At this very moment, Sangwoo's parents enter the ward, overjoyed to see him awake. While Wontae leaves, the doctor also arrives, informing them that it will take approximately 1 month for Sangwoo to return to his normal life. Sangwoo asks how long it has been since the portal opened. In response, his parents inform him that 4 days have passed since the portal's activation, during which many of the high-ranking monsters have been eradicated. However, a number of low-class monsters still remain. Sangwoo's thoughts then turn to Jiwoo, and he eagerly inquires about her well-being. An abrupt change in their expressions follows, accompanied by an uneasy silence. Without uttering a word, They guide Sangwoo to the intensive care unit, where he sees his sister lying unconscious, connected to a ventilator. The doctor tells him that while her physical injuries have been treated, she has fallen victim to a mana-absorbing virus. This is the type of virus, spread by monsters, that leads to the absorption and decomposition of the host's mana. Most of the time, it is not dangerous since the virus dies without absorbing any mana. However, if the traits of the host's mana fit perfectly with the virus, it leads to such excessive mana absorption that the life of the host becomes abnormal. To sustain her, the doctor recommends a continuous supply of mana for her body. Yet a glimmer of hope remains if they find an S-class healer or acquire elixirs from the other side of the portal that are very expensive and rare. Sangwoo is burdened by the weight of devastation. Remorse overwhelms him as he realizes that, in his noble quest to save others, he inadvertently abandoned his own family. Lost in his overwhelming emotions, he unknowingly clenches the blood bottle attached to his arm, inadvertently reopening his wounds. Hastily, he is taken back to his ward, where Haeun pays him a visit. Sangwoo, concerned about their well-being, asks if she and her family are all right. She informs him that, although their house was damaged, they were able to reach the shelter safely. Haeun reveals that her parents contacted his parents and got to find his location. She wishes him a speedy recovery and expresses her desire for him to resume tutoring her soon. In response, Sangwoo discloses his decision to quit school. 2 weeks later, the doctors arrive at Sangwoo's ward for a routine checkup, only to be surprised that he has already left. They ponder if all hunters possess such strength and healing power. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, now fully healed, recalls his conversation with Haeun about his sister's condition and his inability to continue tutoring her. Haeun accepts his decision with understanding and cooperation, vowing to make it to the university with the knowledge he has acquired so far. She bids him farewell, advising him not to regret his choice in the future. However, Sangwoo, preoccupied with the condition of his sister and parents, concludes that he has no time for regrets and leaves. While traveling in a cab, he does research on Wontae and discovers that he is a guildmaster, realizing his significance. Soon after, he arrives at the colossal office building of the Kindness Guild. Entering the building, he goes up to the receptionist and informs her that he wishes to meet Park Wontae. The receptionist inquires about his appointment, to which he responds that he doesn't have one. As a result, she is about to turn him away when a hulking figure approaches and asks if he is Jung Sangwoo. After confirming Sangwoo's identity, the person escorts him upstairs, informing the receptionist that Sangwoo is a guest. He then informs Sangwoo that Wontae is eagerly anticipating his arrival. Meanwhile, in his office, Wontae sits, gazing at a photo frame with a sorrowful expression on his face. As Sangwoo enters the office, he is greeted by Wontae, who expresses his happiness at seeing him in such good health. Wontae expresses astonishment at Sangwoo's quick healing and discharge from the hospital way before the estimated time. Grateful for his assistance and unwavering support, Sangwoo acknowledges that their current situation would have been unimaginable without Wontae's involvement. However, a sense of curiosity tugs at him, compelling him to inquire about the reasons behind Wontae's help. In response, Wontae reveals that he, too, has a sister facing imminent danger, forging a common thread of empathy between them. However, the purpose of saving him and his family was not to make him feel indebted or obliged to do something for him in return. While still feeling indebted, Sangwoo smiles and inquires about the reason for Wontae's meeting with him. In response, Wontae discloses his desire to explore Sangwoo's unique cloning power. Wontae expresses his astonishment upon discovering that Sangwoo's clones possess physical bodies instead of mere illusory manifestations. Getting straight to the point, Wontae implores Sangwoo to assist in the rescue mission of one of their teams, led by his sister. He emphasizes that Sangwoo's unique skill makes him the only person who can succeed in this dangerous mission. Driven by his desperation to save his sister, Wontae pleads with Sangwoo to cooperate, which reminds him of the favors he previously received. Grateful for Wontae's intervention in saving his family, Sangwoo promptly accepts the request, asking what he must do to ensure the safe retrieval of the team. In response, Wontae provides him with a specially designed armor suit and leads him to the training grounds of the Kindness Guild. He explains that Sangwoo will undergo intensive training before embarking on the mission. Sangwoo expresses his confusion regarding the necessity of it all, prompting Wante to clarify that two factors necessitate the training. Wante reveals that his sister possesses extraordinary powers, and the team has an abundance of supplies that can sustain them for at least 8 months. Additionally, given the treacherous nature of the dungeon where they are trapped, combat training is crucial to minimizing the risk of failure. Upon hearing this, Sangwoo begins to realize the necessity of the training for him to embark on their mission. Further expanding on the logic, Wante explains that humans possess an instinct to display incredible strength when about to face death. Scared and bewildered, Sangwoo gazes upward as Wante continues to explain the logic. He says that during emergency situations, humans experience a sudden surge of energy capable of even tearing muscles and breaking bones. However, all these effects are reflected in the growth of stats, something that Sangwoo lacks. Wante informs Sangwoo that even his impressive battle sense will eventually reach its limit during the mission. With an overwhelming amount of mana emanating from his body, he turns to Sangwoo, instructing him to prepare for a challenging training session that will ultimately benefit him. As Wante initiates the sparring session with Sangwoo, he gradually realizes that Wante was indeed correct about his abilities. Later on, he sends a text message to Junmo, informing him about being in the hospital after the training session, but reassuring him that he is all right. A few moments later, Sangwoo arrives at the Jam Agency, appearing battered and bruised. There, he recounts the harrowing experiences his family endured during the portal opening and the mission assigned to him by Wante. Junmo expresses surprise and shock at the situation, especially considering he was unable to contact Sangwoo. Sangwoo explains that he lost his phone and is currently using his clone's phone. Junmo inquires about whether he possesses a backup of the contacts, but is surprised to hear that he doesn't. This causes him to wonder how Sangwoo will reconnect with friends and loved ones. Sangwoo, on the other hand, appears indifferent to this matter and finds solace in the current situation. At that moment, Junmo notices Sangwoo's wounds, prompting him to ask about them. Sangwoo explains that the injuries resulted from his training session with Wante. This explanation infuriates Junmo, and he decides to lodge an official complaint against the guild. Sangwoo manages to calm Junmo down and tries to elucidate Wante's desperate concern for his sister's safety, which fostered empathy in him. Sangwoo also reveals his plan to take his clones along to assist in battle. The following day, he takes one of his clones with him for training. However, this strategy proves futile as both Sangwoo and his clone sustain severe injuries. Determined to persevere, Sangwoo makes another attempt, this time with 2 clones by his side, only to face the same grim outcome. Frustration mounts, leading Sangwoo to decide to bring all 3 clones, hoping their combined strength will be sufficient. Unfortunately, Wante's overwhelming power proves insurmountable, resulting in the defeat of all 4 of them. It is at this moment that Sangwoo realizes the vast disparity between his own stats and those of Wante, realizing the need to acquire additional strength. Contemplating a way to bridge this statistical gap, a daring idea takes hold of Sangwoo's mind. Eagerly, he shares this idea with Junmo, who acknowledges the inherent risks but agrees to give it a try. The following day, as Sangwoo arrives at the training ground accompanied by his clones, Wante is shocked to see the clones, now resembling monstrous creatures. On the previous day, Sangwoo instructed Junmo to bring boxes filled with something for the clones to consume, causing them to transform into monsters. Taken aback by this transformation, Wante inquires about the reason behind it. Sangwoo explains that he had them consume jewels, resulting in a significant enhancement in their stats. Wante is surprised by the astonishing ability of the clones to absorb jewel powers and increase their stats. Sangwoo also wields the fishman's short sword, determined to do whatever it takes to win this time. As the battle starts, Wante instructs them to advance towards him with a killing intent, and they do so. Observing their actions, Wante notices that although the clones have become considerably more powerful, their accuracy in attacks has decreased due to excessive jewel consumption. At that moment, Sangwoo attacks Wante, seemingly overpowering him by striking a bullet at his head. However, to his surprise, the bullet has no impact on Wante. Impressed by the attack, Wante reveals that ordinary bullets cannot harm him unless they are imbued with mana. Saying this, he launches an attack on Sangwoo using batons, knocking him to the ground. Wante then confronts the clones, explaining that merely swinging the sword with raw power does not make one strong unless they imbue their weapons with mana and fight. Sangwoo, astonished by Wante's wooden sword being stronger than his steel one, rises again and launches another attack, only to be blocked once more. Wante believes that Sangwoo has indeed become stronger than before, but according to him, it is still not enough to be considered a C rank. With a single strike, he knocks all four of them to the ground. Sangwoo, rising once again, vows to make a difference soon and initiates the fight once more. Expressing his determination, Sangwoo declares that he has no intention of stopping at the C rank and calls upon his clones, who are lying on the ground. He tries to provoke a killing intent in them by making them witness Wante as the stat-increasing jewel. He orders them to consume him, and they all rush towards Wante. Sangwoo reveals that his determination to become stronger does not arise solely from the mission itself. Instead, it arises from the desire to avoid the helplessness and dejection he experienced in the past while entrusting his family's lives to others. Memories of the portal opening incident, which left his sister in a critical state and disrupted the law and order of the entire nation, resurface in his mind. Vowing never to feel that way again, he continues fighting even after his clones give up. Time passes, and 6 months elapse within the context of their training. At the Sinsealdong Station hunting ground, the members of the Silver Moon Guild physically assault individuals who desire to enter the area, despite possessing the official permit. They assert their control over the hunting ground and prohibit others from entering. Even the guards stationed there turn a blind eye to the situation, causing disappointment among the people. Amidst their mockery and ridicule, Sangwoo arrives at the entrance and encounters a guard, who advises him to leave given the circumstances. Sangwoo insists on entering, asserting that he has already paid for his entry. At that moment, one of the guild members arrives and tells him to leave, attempting to throw a punch. To everyone's surprise, Sangwoo blocks the attack and retaliates with a punch that knocks the guild member to the ground, leaving everyone astonished. Observing the force of his blow, he clarifies that he had no intention to attack and acted purely in self-defense. Recalling where he heard about the Silver Moon Guild, he asks what his entry has to do with them. Witnessing this, the other members of the Silver Moon Guild, all D-class hunters, swiftly gather around Sangwoo. They think that Sangwoo will not be able to single-handedly vanquish them. Proving everyone wrong about his solitude, Sangwoo summons all of his clones to fight alongside him, leaving the present onlookers astounded. They are perplexed about the identity of these individuals and where they have emerged from. Meanwhile, Wante pays a visit to the JM agency to meet with Jummo. Upon his arrival, Jummo presents him with a document that he wished to verify, emphasizing that it cannot be photographed. Complying with the request, Wante takes the document and examines Sangwoo's statistics, which have shown a remarkable increase in the past 6 months. Jummo informs him that Sangwoo has developed an obsession with hunting and exercising, demonstrating an unprecedented level of dedication. Jummo inquires whether these statistics will suffice for the mission, to which he agrees, stating that the growth in Sangwoo's abilities is akin to that of a monster. Considering Sangwoo's capabilities, Wante declares that the time has finally come to commence their rescue mission. He views Sangwoo as an almost C-rank hunter and envisions the possibility of his rank ascending even higher. Meanwhile, Sangwoo and his clones effortlessly subdue the entire assembly of the Silver Moon Guild, leaving the spectators astonished. They can hardly believe their own eyes as each guild member falls to the ground, one by one. After a while, the guards intervene and halt Sangwoo, admonishing him for causing such rampant violence. Sangwoo argues that they should have intervened when the guild members were assaulting the hunters attempting to enter the hunting grounds. Deciding to depart, he instructs them to maintain the security of the area as they previously did. He also orders his clones to break their phones, preventing them from contacting anyone, and they comply. Meanwhile, deep within the hunting ground, the individual who attacked number 1 at Ujangsan Field collects the jewels dropped by the monsters. Growing weary of this task, he decides to leave and heads towards the entrance. Suddenly, he notices Sangwoo entering the dungeon and assumes him to be a member of the inspection team. As Sangwoo draws nearer, he begins speaking without looking, mentioning that he has yet to complete his quota. However, as soon as he glances up, he promptly recognizes Sangwoo as the same person from the Ujangsan Field. Taken aback, he questions how Sangwoo managed to enter when the Silver Moon Guild members were guarding the place. Equally surprised, Sangwoo asks what he, a weak hunter, is doing in a D-class dungeon. Judging by his appearance, Sangwoo deduces that he did not come here to hunt. He inquires whether the Silver Moon Guild trapped him in the dungeon, causing the individual to feel nervous. Sangwoo then takes out his phone and shows him a picture of the guild members stationed at the entrance, sitting on the ground without their armor. He reassures him not to worry about them and insists on hearing the truth. Observing that Sangwoo has defeated all D-rank hunters, the person feels astonished. Sangwoo urges him to tell the truth, warning of consequences if falsehoods are detected. He presents Sangwoo with a ruby-colored jewel, explaining that these remarkable treasures are dropped by D-class monsters when they die. This surprises Sangwoo, as he was previously unaware that only D-class monsters and above drop these jewels. The person proceeds to explain that even after the monsters' deaths, the jewels remain inside their bodies for an extended period of time. They also become the cause of fights between monsters, leading to more deaths and the accumulation of jewels on the grounds. However, for the D-class hunters, these jewels hold little significance, so they do not collect them. As a result, lower-class hunters like himself are trapped within the hunting grounds, compelled to collect these jewels and meet a quota for their release. When asked, he reveals that the people trapped in the dungeon are mostly those who owe debts to the guild or have been sold by other guilds. Even if they die during the collection process, it is considered a natural hunter's death. This reminds Sangwoo of his video game, and he realizes he never expected to witness something like this in reality. Sangwoo decides to spare him and instructs him to leave, assuring him that the guild members will not hinder his exit at the gate. However, he keeps the sack of jewels and gives it to number 1 to consume and enhance his strength. Changing his motive from hunting to collecting jewels, Sangwoo proceeds inside. Meanwhile, within the hunting grounds, Kim Lai-an, a laborer from the Silver Moon Guild, runs for her life, narrowly escaping a powerful C-class monster she unexpectedly encountered. As she runs, she curses the Silver Moon Guild for not informing them about the presence of C-class monsters within the dungeon. After covering a great distance, she is eventually caught by the monster when she falls down. However, just as the monster is about to reach her, Sangwoo emerges as the savior and pulls her aside. Sangwoo inquires about the jewels she has collected, but she discloses that she abandoned them a long time ago. He then asks why she mentioned the High Sun Guild while running when it was actually the Silver Moon Guild that brought her there. Yuan, bewildered by Sangwoo's calm demeanor in the face of imminent danger, struggles to understand the situation and repeatedly warns him about the approaching monster. However, as it draws near, number 1, who is transformed into a formidable monster, unexpectedly emerges from the shadows and launches a ferocious assault on it. While she stands there, shocked by what she has witnessed, Sangwoo remains remarkably composed and unfazed as he addresses her again, reiterating his inquiries. This makes her wonder what kind of person Sangwoo is. Ignoring his question, she attempts to run away, but Sangwoo stops her once more. She considers Sangwoo insane for acting so calmly with menacing monsters surrounding them. However, Sangwoo assures her not to worry, as number 2 and number 3 also arrive and join forces with number 1. This makes her wonder if they are a team or if Sangwoo is a summoner. While they keep the approaching monsters at bay, Sangwoo tries to continue the conversation once more. However, at that moment, the tide turns against number 1, who sustains severe injuries as the C-class monster strikes him down. Sangwoo feels disappointed in him for losing after consuming so many jewels and steps forward to confront the monster himself. Wielding his short sword, he instructs Yuan to remain quiet while he focuses on the attack. He then charges towards the monster and delivers a decisive blow, causing the monster to lose its balance. As the monster howls in agony, memories of the scream Firefly resurface, further fueling Sangwoo's fury. This anger, combined with the berserk effect of the short sword, causes Sangwoo to lose control of his senses. With increasing power, he charges forward and, with a single strike of his sword, tears the monster to shreds. Yuan, standing in awe of Sangwoo's formidable power, remains motionless. She can't believe that Sangwoo actually killed the monster. Meanwhile, number 1 lies helpless on the ground, gravely injured and unable to use his regenerating ability. Yuan informs Sangwoo that the monster's bone sword is cursed and possesses the ability to block regeneration, inflicting fatal harm. This makes Sangwoo contemplate the impact it would have had if it had struck him. Observing number one closely, she feels surprised and asks Sangwoo if he truly is a human, as she initially thought he was a troll wearing a hat. Sangwoo reveals that he is a summoner. Upon hearing this, she offers him a self-made medicine that, although effective in accelerating the clone's healing process, comes with certain side effects. Without considering the potential side effects, Sangwoo administers the medicine, observing number one's wounds heal swiftly. Impressed by the medicine's impact, he asks what it was. However, Yayan remains still, stating that number one has only recovered temporarily. She then reveals the medicine's side effects. It gradually depletes the recipient's life energy. She admits to being skilled in the art of poison making, explaining her ability to create such a potent concoction. Upon learning that his clone is nearing death, Sangwoo orders him to continue hunting until his last breath, with the intention of eventually summoning him again. Intrigued by Sangwoo's exceptional skill, Yayan asks who he is, considering his ability to summon such powerful creatures. She confesses that she has never heard of a B-class hunter of his caliber in the country before. Sangwoo, modestly revealing himself as a mere E-class hunter, leaves Yayan shocked. Curious about why an E-class hunter is in a D-class dungeon and how he is hunting with such ease, Yayan questions Sangwoo. In response, Sangwoo tells her to calm down and explains that he also has many questions to ask her. Meanwhile, at the Yolo Guild warehouse, Han Miho, the guildmaster, gathers thousands of jewels, surprising her subordinates. When her manager inquires about the reason behind her collection, she reveals that she is doing it at Wante's request. She informs her about Sangwoo, who will be using the jewels for a specific purpose. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Sangwoo continues his conversation with Yayan, discussing his casting skills. He inquires about her mentioning the High Sun Guild while escaping the monster. The fact that he does not know the reason behind it, despite being a hunter, surprises her. Sangwoo explains that he recently acquired his hunter's license, so he lacks knowledge about guild-related matters. Yayan reveals that the Silver Moon Guild operates as a subordinate to the High Sun Guild, carrying out illegal tasks. She further discloses that most of the laborers in the dungeon have been ensnared by the High Sun Guild. When Sangwoo asks her how she ended up there, it triggers a painful memory, and she chooses not to share it. Armed with this newfound information, Sangwoo prepares to leave, expressing his intention to continue hunting while advising Yayan to leave the dungeon. Just before parting ways, Sangwoo admires Yayan's skills and hands her a business card from the Jamin agency, urging her to contact him if she needs employment. He instructs number 05 to escort her to the entrance and departs, thinking that her skills will be useful for his clones. Suddenly, number one's condition starts to deteriorate due to side effects, and he disappears. Witnessing this, Sangwoo summons him back and resumes his pursuit. Meanwhile, members of the Silver Moon Guild observing the scene are shocked to see number one die and then come back to life. Reflecting on Sangwoo's abilities, they wonder what type of person he is. One of them expresses his wish to have their armor back, while another recalls that they still got beaten up when they had the armor. He then leads his comrade to a secret room behind the walls, astonishing him by revealing a hidden manufacturing facility deep in the dungeon. Curious about the significance of this presence on the hunting ground, he asks why it was set up there. The other explains that the convenience of acquiring raw materials from the hunting ground and the low chance of discovery played a role in its placement. The covered space serves to manufacture and store refined jewel crystals, which possessed immense power and enhance an individual's statistics. He explains that although the crystals have adverse effects on humans, a company further processes them into capsules that can be used to increase stats safely. Due to the strict prohibition on producing and trading these crystals, such companies purchase them from their guilds at exorbitant prices. Recognizing the crystal's significant value, they are determined not to lose them at any cost. Consequently, they decide to return the following day to retrieve them. As they leave, Yayan, who has been covertly trailing them, discovers the hidden chamber and enters, relieved to have gotten rid of number 5. Inside the room, she finds the jewel crystals and hides them in her clothing before making her escape. Upon reaching the outside, she notices other laborers running out of the dungeon and joins them to avoid being caught. Number 05, who has been observing her, sees her leaving the dungeon and returns, thinking that he has successfully accomplished the mission. Simultaneously, Sangwoo concludes his hunt and proceeds to free the captive laborers from the dungeon, acquiring a considerable number of jewels in the process. Prohibiting his clone from consuming any more jewels, he starts walking towards the entrance. Just then, he receives a message from Junmo, calling him to the Kenius Guild office the next day to discuss the mission's details. The following day, the members of the Silver Moon Guild return to retrieve the crystals but find the room empty. Aware that the deadline is tomorrow, they contemplate what to do. They venture outside and torture the guard for failing to fulfill his duty properly. The guard insists that he cannot stop hunters with tickets from entering, and the only person who entered yesterday was Sangwoo. This leads them to believe that Sangwoo and his clones have taken the jewels. Faced with a looming sense of doom, they feel powerless to reclaim them. After leaving the dungeon, Yayan hides the crystals, realizing that selling them at this time could potentially expose her and lead to her capture. While doing so, she notices Jam Agency's business card falling from her pocket, reminding her of Sangwoo's offer. However, she appears uninterested in the opportunity and walks away. Meanwhile, Sangwoo and Junmo meet Wante, who informs them about the Tower of Odin, where his sister and her team are currently trapped. This tower holds extraordinary stature as an S-class dungeon that is largely unexplored. According to Wante, it was first discovered by Bak Wan, who tried challenging it but lost contact with them and never returned. After that, countless hunters ventured into its depths, only to meet their demise or disappear without a trace, with the exception of a renowned individual known as Jumper. Sangwoo asks for an explanation regarding his team's entrapment in the tower. Wante explains that the Tower of Odin possesses a unique configuration, featuring an entrance but no discernible exit. The only way to establish a connection with the outside world after entering is through mana. He emphasizes that escaping the dungeon is only possible through teleportation, which does not always work. This is why he considers Sangwoo's cloning ability valuable for this mission. Junmo inquires why his team couldn't escape the dungeon despite having an escape method, prompting Wante to narrate the entire story to them. He says that it occurred 5 years after the catastrophic disaster, when he was only 16 and his sister Yuna was 9. Once during the disaster, when he was engaged in battle with monsters, Yuna came out of the house, bringing him chocolate to eat. Concerned for her safety, he urged her to go back inside, but she revealed her newly acquired skill instead. Yuna possessed an extraordinary skill similar to subspace storage, enabling her to conceal objects and even individuals within an invisible storage realm. Wante feels devastated for allowing her to go there. The grief of losing a family member is so heartbreaking that he cannot control it, no matter how hard he tries. He regrets being satisfied with their teleportation scrolls and emergent supplies, which led him to agree and send them away. He proceeds to say that even though he contemplated his decision after they left, he was convinced by his comrade to trust them and stay calm. After that, he went to monitor the awakening program that Sangwoo also took part in. However, Sangwoo tells him that he would not have recognized him if he saw him because he was so chubby back then. Upon Junmo's inquiry, he tells that they had maintained contact with the team through teleportation scrolls for a month, which led him to believe that everything was fine. After a month, when the team had covered about 40 kilometers of distance, they went to the entrance of Odin's tower to connect with them. However, when they established the connection, they received a report of an ambush by an unknown monster, resulting in significant damage to their team. Suddenly, the portal opened in front of them, and a team member emerged, severely injured. This distressing sight left Wante stricken with remorse and plagued by regret over his decision to grant them permission to undertake the perilous journey. After the injured team member entered the portal, it closed immediately, making them feel increasingly worried about the well-being of their team. With the telepathy still connected, they inform the team that a rescue team will be sent soon. They tell them to only come out of the subdimension around 2 p.m. for a check. The escaped member delivered the disheartening news that the monsters tore apart all their scrolls, resulting in the mission's failure. He revealed that the monster he encountered was a strange creature previously unknown. Following that, his condition deteriorated, and he was taken to the hospital. While sitting there, hopeless and devastated, Wante's guild member informed him that the telepathy is still active and Yuna wants to say something to him. Repeating her words, he revealed that the battle is over and they have suffered a defeat. However, she urged them not to rush to their aid, due to the abundance of supplies they possess. Finally, she vowed to return alive no matter what, and the connection abruptly ended. Faced with the dire situation, Wanti diligently sought assistance from numerous hunters for a rescue operation. Yet they all declined, well aware of the danger associated with the mission. While some labeled him insane for requesting such a favor, others found it unachievable. However, it was during this desperate search for help that the incident of the portal opening occurred, leading him to encounter Sangwoo. This makes Sangwoo realize why Wanti wanted him to increase his stats. After providing all these details, Wanti discloses his plan to initiate the rescue operation the next day. Satisfied with their discussion, they conclude their meeting and agree to reconvene the following day. Meanwhile, the members of the Silver Moon Guild return to their leader, Yang Juchiol, and inform him about the lost crystals. Enraged by their failure, Juchiol administers punishment, fully aware of the significant financial loss resulting from the missing crystals. He then inquires about Sangwoo's identity, and they explain that except for him, all of his companions were wearing masks, and even he is not listed as a C or D class hunter. Realizing that they were defeated by an E class hunter, his anger intensifies further, and he starts beating them severely. He states that they were not the only ones manufacturing the crystals, and failing to produce them by the due date would lead to a major financial loss. He commands them to swiftly locate and bring back Sangwoo, fully aware that accomplishing this task will prove exceedingly challenging for them. To ensure their success, Juchiol dispatches the vice leader of the Silver Moon Guild, Kang Cheon-song, to accompany them on their mission. Meanwhile, at the JAM agency, Sangwoo expresses his confusion to Jummo regarding the reasons behind Wante's guild venturing into a dungeon that had already been conquered by Jumper. They recall Jumper stating in a press conference that the Tower of Odin has no treasure or precious items, only lurking monsters. Thus, entering it is equivalent to sacrificing one's life, prompting hunters to stop going there. As they share their opinions on this matter, they suddenly come across Ryan, who is sleeping at the agency entrance, exhausted from waiting for their arrival. Sangwoo informs Jummo about Ryan, who then wakes her up and takes them to a nearby restaurant for a meal. There, as she is engrossed in eating, Sangwoo saves his number in her phone and asks if she came here to work for their agency, to which she agrees. Jummo inquires about her skill, which she introduces as appraising items a little and making potions. Sangwoo makes fun of her, stating that her potions lead to death, to which she gets annoyed and tells him that not all potions are poisonous. Getting serious, Sangwoo praises her skill once again and expresses his desire to use her potions. Considering that Sangwoo wants to use the potions on his clones, Jummo agrees to allocate funds for her to create them. Sensing that it is time to meet with Wante, Sangwoo rises from his seat, preparing to depart. However, just as he is about to leave, Yuan hands him 2 potions, one enhancing strength and the other augmenting mana, as a service for food. She also shares the side effects of the potions, including melting muscles and exploding the body. Grateful for her contribution, Sangwoo leaves, accompanied by his clones. The YOLO Guild manager walks towards the warehouse while talking to her senior on the phone. She tells them that she will contact them after transporting all the jewels to the Kenius Guild. However, as she enters the warehouse, she sees their guards lying dead on the ground. She runs inside to see the walls of the warehouse broken and all their jewels robbed. Enraged by the act, she activates her raider skill to detect if someone is hiding inside. After locating 3 people inside, she runs towards the warehouse, only to be attacked by an invisible person from behind. Shocked to have been unable to detect him, she inquires who he is. Just then, the person knocks her down and materializes in front of her. He turns out to be Kang Cheon-song, the vice captain of the Silver Moon Guild, who says that they need these jewels badly. With this, he enters the warehouse, where his subordinates are done collecting all the jewels. In order to erase all evidence, Cheon-song sets the store ablaze before leaving. He then decides to find the person who stole their jewel crystals. Meanwhile, Sangwoo and his clones travel to Iceland, accompanied by the members of the Kenius Guild, to initiate the mission. They land near the Valhalla portal, which connects the place to Odin's Tower. As they reach there, the additional guild members guarding the place tell them to enter the portal right away, as Wante eagerly awaits their arrival at the entrance. Meanwhile, in the guild camp, Wante and his comrade discuss the incident of robbery at the YOLO Guild. They express their surprise at someone being so daring to mess with a person like Han Mio. Just then, Sangwoo enters, and they are overjoyed to see him, considering that the most awaited day has finally arrived. Wante provides him and his clones with warm coats to shield themselves from the harsh cold. Meanwhile, Wante stands near Sangwoo, placing all his trust and hopes in him. After establishing a successful connection with them, Sangwoo finds them confronting a fierce snowstorm, which they barely manage to resist. After the storm is over, he notices them standing in the middle of a frozen valley with huge rocks of ice surrounding them. The frigid temperature inside the dungeon intensifies, surpassing the chilliness of the external environment. He tells his fellows that they have finally reached Odin's tower, bracing them for the challenges ahead. Sangwoo feels astonished at having complete control over Number One's body, even making him move. This is the 17th level of his familiar skill, which enables him to do so. Leading the team, Sangwoo moves forward, determined to succeed in their rescue mission. While progressing, Sangwoo reads about the frost bats that they are likely to encounter at the mission's outset. Just as he is reading about those E-class monsters, a group of frost bats attacks them. Using their guns, they swiftly dispatch the bats and proceed to encounter their boss, a D-class monster. Using his short sword, Sangwoo kills the monster in an instant, surprising himself. After getting rid of all the bats, they continue their venture, moving deeper into the dungeon. Sangwoo and his clones continue their relentless battle against the frost bats until they cover a distance of 13 kilometers. According to the briefing, they anticipate encountering new monsters after reaching this distance. As they are discussing that, they are suddenly attacked by a group of monsters resembling Yetis. They skillfully employ mana charge bullets to confront them head-on. Sangwoo strategically positions his clones at various angles for effective attacks, leading to their success. As they move at high speed, they successfully take them down, making Sangwoo believe that they can eliminate all of them if they maintain this approach. However, the ground beneath him suddenly cracks, and a giant hand emerges, seizing him in its grasp. Meanwhile, Sangwoo remains in the tent, intricately linked to Number One, bravely facing the perilous fight. The guild's vice captain expresses concern for his well-being, but Wante assures her that he will be fine. He tells her that he initially planned to secretly infiltrate the place and rescue the teen without confronting any monsters. However, Sangwoo's improvement in stats was remarkable, which made him a formidable force akin to a B-rank hunter capable of accomplishing the mission with resounding success. Wante also highlights the growth and strength of Sangwoo's clones, equating them to B-rank hunters. Considering that their lost team had an average rank of B, Wante views Sangwoo alone as equivalent to the entire team. He believes Sangwoo could have become even stronger if the jewels hadn't been stolen from the Yolo Guild warehouse. They believe that with this power, Sangwoo can confront all the monsters on the first floor, except for the ice golem. Wante says that he informed Sangwoo about the ice golem, so he hopes that Sangwoo will avoid it and pass safely, despite knowing that it is hard to avoid it while passing that area. Meanwhile, in Odin's tower, a colossal ice golem materializes before them, momentarily stunning Sangwoo. To defeat it, Sangwoo draws his short sword and inflicts a wound on Number One's finger, causing blood to pour out and react with the sword. As soon as the blood reacts with the sword, Number One gains immense strength, which Sangwoo utilizes to strike the ice golem. However, to his surprise, Fishman's short sword fails to inflict any harm on it. Seeing this, he swiftly jumps down the monster's hand, considering that there is no other way to deal damage to it if the short sword has failed to affect it. To their astonishment, the monster, exhibiting a voracious appetite, starts devouring the Yeti-like monsters, aiming towards them afterward. Seeing this, they start to run in different directions to dodge the creature. Understanding the urgency, Sangwoo realizes he must target the creature's core, as advised by Wante. He searches for the monster's core and soon locates it. However, the challenge lies in finding a way to destroy that core. Despite their attempts, including the use of enchanted magic bullets, all their efforts prove futile. Suddenly, the monster charges at the clones, launching a surprise attack. Sangwoo instructs all of them to evade the attack, and they comply. In a swift maneuver, the monster manages to catch Number 5, causing Sangwoo to worry about the teleport scroll he possessed. Then an idea sparks in his mind, and he rushes towards the monster, which is dangerously close to devouring Number 05 entirely. fearlessly leaping into the creature's mouth, number 1 successfully grabs the teleportation scroll from number 05 as the monster consumes him. The clones stand frozen in shock, while Sangwoo jumps down from the monster's mouth and starts laughing. Observing the monster, he retrieves a torn piece of the teleport scroll, causing the monster's core to vanish. He reveals that while snatching the teleport scroll from number 5, he tore it, letting the monster consume half of it to teleport its core away. Just then, the core of the monster disappears, resulting in its rapid and utter destruction within a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, the monster's core materializes within the guild members' tent, leaving them in a state of perplexity as they behold its unexpected presence. This audacious feat of eliminating such a formidable adversary results in bolstering Sangwoo's strength and endurance while also elevating his skill level. Consequently, he attains the ability to summon 7 clones simultaneously, leaving him overwhelmed with joy. However, in the present circumstance, Sangwoo opts not to summon the 7th clone, focusing instead on the continuation of their mission. Meanwhile, George Lucas receives a list of people seeking to meet him in the current month. Seeing that none of them is from any of the South Korean guilds, he gets frustrated and dismisses all requests, telling them to proceed with the Academy inauguration ceremony. Simultaneously, the same hunter from Ujongsan Field sits in a house having lunch with his criminal friend. He tells him about being trapped in the dungeon by the Silver Moon Guild. He reveals that the Haesung Guild handed him over to them because he caused a problem. Intrigued, his friend asks how he managed to get out of the dungeon, to which he replies that he got some help. Changing the topic, his friend asks him to help their other fellow with some work after having lunch. Just then, the doorbell rings, and his friend gets up to open the door. As soon as he opens the door, Silver Moon Guild members come dashing inside, followed by their vice captain, Cheon-san. Cheon-san looks in a hurry and comes straight to the point, asking him about the person who attacked their guild members. Cheon-san informs him that he asked the same question from 2 people before him, but they said they did not know anything. He then reveals his hand stained with blood, signaling that both of them have already been killed. Cheon-san then asks him whether he is aware of anything or not. His friend, who is enraged because of their entering his house and threatening them, rushes to attack Cheon-san. However, to his surprise, Cheon-san proves even more powerful than him and easily blocks the attack, knocking him to the ground instead. Seeing him holding such immense power, the hunter steps forward and asks them to stop, saying that he will come with them. In response, Cheon-san attacks him as well and knocks him down, saying that he eventually had to come with them anyway. Meanwhile, the other guild members keep beating up his friend until he is on the verge of death, saying that it is punishment for his rude behavior. However, just as Cheon-san is about to kill him, the hunter comes once again, saying that he knows the person they are after and imploring him to show some mercy. Meanwhile, Sangwoo's clones forge ahead on their expedition towards the trapped team. On their way, they encounter the chilling sight of numerous lifeless bodies, both humans and monsters alike. They wonder why there are more dead bodies and no monsters in this area. Clueless about who might have killed them, Sangwoo asks about the location. One of his clones informs him that they are near their destination. Considering that, Sangwoo tells them to find traces of battle, implying the likelihood that Team 1 has concealed themselves in a subdimension close to the location of the conflict. While he is giving them directions to start the search, one of them abruptly detects a disturbance and swiftly unsheathes his sword, leaving him shocked. Taking out his weapon, the clone launches an attack while others turn to see what he is aiming at. Suddenly, a massive ice monster appears before them out of nowhere, making them wonder if its skill is invisibility. Just then, the creature begins to give a signal to its fellows, creating a loud sound. As they struggle to comprehend the situation, an entire army of these elusive monsters materializes from all directions. This unravels the mystery of the numerous lifeless bodies scattered in the vicinity without any visible sign of the monsters. Sangwoo realizes why the team was unable to escape the dungeon. Just like other people who came before them, they enter the area without detecting the monster's presence, eventually getting trapped. Sangwoo pulls out his sword and begins to fight, effortlessly slashing the monsters, making a route for their escape. However, as soon as they start getting the upper hand, the monsters start to disappear, making Sangwoo unable to see them. However, he notices that his clones are still able to effectively defend against their attacks. This leads him to relinquish control of Number One's body and senses and observe how they do that. To his surprise, Number One runs in the monster's direction, telling others to make a way out, and wields his sword to kill the invisible monsters. As he does so, Sangwoo discovers that his clones rely on their acute perception of the monster's movements, discerning the subtle sounds of the wind as the creatures move, enabling them to successfully fend them off. Considering that, Sangwoo begins to realize that his clones are way too skilled for him to copy them fully at the moment, and he has a long way to go in order to do that. Meanwhile, within the subdimension, Yuna's team members inform her that it is 2 o'clock, the time for them to venture outside in the hope of finding the rescue team. Hearing this, she gets up again, wanting to tell them to have some hope, despite being hopeless herself. Expecting the same creepy, silent ice field to greet her, Yuna musters the strength to step outside. However, as soon as she opens the subdimension, she is taken aback to hear a sound reaching her ears. Meanwhile, the clones engage in a relentless battle against the snow monsters, tirelessly pushing forward as Sangwoo observes them. Even though the monsters are not that strong, the overwhelming number of them attacking from all sides while being invisible makes it difficult for them to continue fighting. Therefore, they decide to simply escape. Just then, Sangwoo catches sight of the subdimension and feels relieved to have found the team. He promptly instructs everyone to swiftly head towards the entrance. Witnessing this, Yuna gathers her team members at the entrance, informing them that she has caught sight of a human and heard certain sounds. As they all rush to investigate, they feel relieved to see that someone has finally come to rescue them. However, Yuna notices something else, which fills her with shock. She alerts her teammates to the fact that the individual is accompanied by a complete army of monsters, leaving them all astounded. Meanwhile, Sangwoo approaches them and explains that he has arrived to rescue them, but requires their assistance at the present moment. Upon hearing this, Yuna instructs her team to provide support and arm themselves for an attack. As the clones charge through the portal, the team swiftly launches a counterattack on the monsters, using their magical arrows to defend the subdimension. Simultaneously, Sangwoo and his clones safely infiltrate the secure subdimension. Once inside, Yuna promptly seals the entrance, ensuring their safety. She then asks Sangwoo if he is a member of the Kindness Guild, to which he replies that she is only partially correct. He reveals that he has been sent by Wante, who has entrusted him with the task of saving them all. This realization reassures them that their master has not abandoned them. Yuna inquires about Seong-ta, the team member who managed to escape the dungeon. Sangwoo informs her that, although he is alive, he has yet to regain consciousness. This saddens Yuna, and Sangwoo realizes the depth of her care for her team. He suggests that they leave immediately since Wante is anxiously waiting at the entrance. However, as he prepares to activate the teleportation scroll, he notices that Yuna does not look happy. He deduces that the people who went on the mission were 10, out of whom only 1 escaped, but the people currently present, there are less than 9. At that moment, Yuna pleads for one final favor from Sangwoo. She explains that during their mission, one of their team members was killed, and she wishes to retrieve their comrade's body before they depart. This revelation helps him understand why they are only 8 now. He asks for details about what happened, and she recounts that their healer was brutally slain in an ambush. Immediately afterward, she opened the subdimension and instructed the team to enter. Although she herself wanted to fight, considering that her death would leave her team members helpless, she had to back off. Just then, she used a teleport scroll to report to their guild. However, during that chaotic situation, one monster managed to slip into the subdimension and injured Seong-ta, tearing all the teleport scrolls. The last portal that opened at that time closed before all the team members could get in. Hearing this, Sangwoo asks where the corpse of their team member lies. Yuna opens the subdimension and tells him about her location, which seems much farther away than their present location. Sangwoo understands the futility of this endeavor, considering that there is no possibility of reaching such a location without encountering any monsters. However, aware that Yuna has adamantly refused to lead without retrieving the fallen comrade's remains, he reluctantly agrees to assist them. However, he proposes 2 conditions for that. First, if the mission seems dangerous, they will depart immediately, leaving the body, to which she agrees. Secondly, he instructs the team to remain inside the subdimension while they undertake the task. Yuna does not want them to undertake such a difficult task, stating that she only wants their help and does not want to put them in danger. Upon this, Sangwoo assures her that nothing can happen to them since they are only clones and not real humans. This revelation leaves the team in a state of profound disbelief and astonishment. Meanwhile, the members of the Silver Moon Guild arrive at the JM agency, meticulously searching it. Meanwhile, Cheonsong subjects Jummo to torture in an attempt to extract information about Sangwoo. Despite the brutality inflicted upon him, Jummo steadfastly refuses to disclose any details. Determined to uncover Sangwoo's whereabouts, they keep torturing him until one of his guild members finds some documents containing comprehensive information about Sangwoo. With the crucial details in hand, they dispatch people to track down Sangwoo at the mentioned address, while they take Jummo with them. Lian, who happens to witness all this, is deeply shocked by the arrival of Silver Moon Guild members at the JM agency. While she is listening to their conversation, Jummo inquires about the purpose behind their search for Sangwoo. Upon this, Hyun-san reveals that Sangwoo fought with their guild members, stole all their gem crystals, and fled. Yuyan's shock intensifies as she realizes that the guild members hold Sangwoo responsible for the theft that she has committed. A sense of urgency surges through her mind, and she knows she has to take action. Meanwhile, Sangwoo, controlling Number One's body, explains his plan to everyone. He assigns 2 of his clones the responsibility to guard the entrance, while the remaining 2 accompany him on the mission to retrieve the body. He tells them never to come out, no matter what, and refuses to accept their help in the mission, stating that their safety is his greatest priority. Yuna reminds him that it was her team that saved them when they were escaping the monsters earlier, but he explains that he had other plans for that time as well. He asks her to trust him and stay inside, to which she agrees. Sangwoo reveals that during his 6 months of training, he acquired a unique skill called Monster Devour. This skill allows him to absorb the essence of monsters, granting him a portion of their stats. This is the reason behind the overwhelming surge in his stats. However, he does not plan to stop there and continues his pursuit of power. He tells Yuna that he is ready for the mission and instructs the clones to follow him. Entrusting Number 4 with his sword and the potion provided by Yuan, Sangwoo instructs him to quickly return to the subdimension after retrieving the body. Yuna informs him that the monsters remain still in their locations until they find prey, so she advises him to be cautious since the monsters he brought with him are still outside. Once all the arrangements are made, Sangwoo leaves the subdimension with his clones to retrieve the corpse. After a brief search, they locate the lifeless body, only to be assaulted by numerous ice monsters obstructing their path. Meanwhile, the 2 clones continue to guard the entrance and warn the team to stay away from it. Seeing the clones venturing alone, the team members feel indecisive about whether they should have helped. However, Yuna assures them that they should trust Sangwoo's plans and wait here patiently. Meanwhile, Sangwoo fights the invisible monsters, gaining much more mastery over the skill than before. Instructing his clones to ignore the monsters and proceed directly to the corpse, Sangwoo stops there and engages in combat with the vicious creatures. Unexpectedly, additional monsters emerge from behind the shield, surrounding them. Witnessing this, Sangwoo decides to have Number 1 consume the strength potion provided by Yuan. As he administers the potion, Sangwoo experiences a tremendous surge of power within Number 1's body, causing him to go berserk. Utilizing his magical bullets, he unleashes a barrage of attacks, effectively clearing a path for the other 2 clones to reach the coveted corpse. Finally reaching their objective, they carefully place the lifeless body in a sack. However, the side effects of the strength potion begin to manifest in Number 1's body, bringing him to the brink of explosion. Faced with this dire situation, Number 1 urges his fellow clones to flee while he draws the attention of the persistent monsters. Acting upon his advice, they swiftly make their escape and enter the subdimension. Meanwhile, more and more monsters keep approaching Number 1, launching vivacious attacks on him while he sees his fellows going away. In the subdimension, the clone tears the teleport scroll, opening a portal, stating that they should not worry about Number 1 since he is just a clone. Seeing the subdimension disappear, Number 1 smiles, hoping to meet them on the other side of the portal when his body explodes, leading to the monsters being killed. With this mass killing, Sangwoo's Devour skill leads to a massive absorption of the monster's essence, leading to a significant rise in his stats. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Seong-ta, a member of the assault team who managed to escape the dungeon, slowly begins to recover. Simultaneously, within the Kenius Guild tent, a portal materializes, causing a mixture of excitement and worry among them. Just then, a hand emerges from the portal, triggering Wanti's recollection of a similar incident 6 months ago when the portal materialized and returned a nearly deceased team member. Contemplating this, he closes his eyes and holds his heart, bracing for the possibility of something negative. As he slowly opens his eyes, he catches a glimpse of his lost sister's reflection, staring at him in disbelief. Witnessing her alive and well, a smile involuntarily appears on his face, and he questions whether she has truly returned. Meanwhile, Sangwoo deactivates his familiar skill, feeling utterly exhausted. Opening his eyes, he witnesses the long-awaited reunion between Wante and his sister, both overwhelmed with emotions at seeing each other again. As they meet, a profound sense of relief washes over them, and they express how deeply they missed one another. This reunion evokes a mix of emotions, leaving everyone present feeling both moved and happy. Simultaneously, Seong-tae regains consciousness in the hospital, while the guild members start packing their belongings in preparation for their departure from Iceland. Amidst all this, Number 4 returns the teleport scroll and sword to Sangwoo, who begins assessing the growth of his statistics following the successful mission. Just then, Wante and Yuna approach him, expressing heartfelt gratitude for his crucial assistance during their dire circumstances. Sangwoo receives their appreciation humbly. Wante assures him that they will always stand by his side and offer support whenever he finds himself in need or trouble. Sangwoo then returns the teleport scroll to Wante, mentioning that it was the only one left unused during the mission. In a gesture of gratitude, Wante insists that Sangwoo keep it, along with the unused expedition items, as a way to repay his debt. However, overcome by shyness, Sangwoo declines the offer, a decision he later deeply regrets. As Wante and Yuna walk away, they discuss the uniqueness and rarity of Sangwoo's skill, believing that he has the potential to become even stronger in the future. Exiting the Valhalla portal's entrance, the group heads towards their plane with the intention of returning to South Korea. Sangwoo inquires if Wante will be busy after their return, to which he mentions the need to get the team's health checked and prepare for a funeral. Upon regaining access to the long-lost mobile network, Sangwoo's phone becomes flooded with messages from Yayan. She informs him about the raid on the JM agency by the Silver Moon Guild and the subsequent capture of Jummo. Outraged by this news, Sangwoo urgently seeks out Wante to inform him of the situation and stresses the need for an immediate departure. Responding swiftly, Wante once again offers Sangwoo the teleportation scroll, suggesting that he use it to reach there faster. Meanwhile, Yayan, following the Silver Moon Guild members in her pursuit of locating Jummo, arrives at a heavily fortified warehouse under their control. While awaiting Sangwoo's arrival, she unexpectedly finds herself confronted by one of the guild members, who questions her presence. However, before she can respond, Sangwoo intervenes abruptly, emerging from a portal created by the teleportation scroll.